Chapter 496. In the end, the two brothers, Han Tianping and Han Tianxiong, had no choice but to grit their teeth and pay the 1,500,000 spirit stones. The Great Void Auction wasn't an ordinary organization. The power behind it was so great that even the City Lord Palace of Gold Star City didn't dare offend it lightly. If they offended the Great Void Auction House, it would be extremely easy for the Great Void Auction House to kill them in the eastern part of the central region. However, after paying 1,500,000 high-grade spirit stones, they no longer had any energy left to compete for other items. Thus, they could only leave resentfully. However, their hatred for Tianyang had reached its peak. They wanted nothing more than to eat Tianyang alive. Tianyang naturally didn't care about this. After all, why would a giant care about the hatred of an ant? In Tianyang's opinion, these two were just point-giving machines in the future. In terms of combat power, these two were really no different from ants in front of Tianyang. Young Master Tian, I have been unhappy with Gold Star City for a long time. Especially after Han Tianxiong joined the Mountain River sect. He became even more domineering and lawless. Young Master Tian, just a few words from you have caused these two to die. I admire you. Tai Wuji stepped forward and spoke in admiration when he saw Tianyang's calm expression. Tianyang chuckled softly. These two were stupid to begin with. My provocation didn't have much effect on them. Tai Wuji naturally didn't feel the same way. How could anyone who could become a disciple of the Mountain River sect be stupid? Tianyang was obviously being humble. However, Tai Wuji had no intention of retorting. Watching his own opponents suffer was a very satisfying feeling. Let's wait and see. Oh right, City Lord Tai, are you interested in obtaining the sky-breaking flame armor? Tianyang chuckled softly. Tai Wuji shook his head when he heard this. Forget it. Although the sky-breaking flame armor is a high-grade spirit weapon, it will be extremely difficult for it to recognize an owner. I don't specialize in fire-based cultivation. Even if I obtain the sky-breaking flame armor, I won't be able to recognize an owner. What if I buy a pile of scrap metal? If it really is a high-grade spirit weapon, it would have been sent to the central region to be auctioned. There are definitely more martial way powerhouses there than here, Tai Wuji said. Tai Wuji said. Hearing this, Tianyang immediately understood. So the items auctioned by the Great Void Auction were all defective goods. Although they weren't defective items, the auction here definitely wasn't as grand as the one at the Central Region's central region. At the thought of this, Tianyang's heart skipped a beat. The auction in Sword Star City was already so spectacular. How many treasures would there be in the Central Region's central region? However, the other items in the Great Void Auction are also pretty good. If young Master Tian has the time, you can continue looking around. Tai Wuji smiled. Tianyang nodded. With such a cheap underling, it was indeed much more convenient to do things in Sword Star City. At the very least, the two people with the surname Han would definitely not dare to attack him in Sword Star City. Otherwise, once Tai Wuji attacked, Golden Star City would be destroyed. After the sky-high price of 1.5 million high-grade spirit stones, the crowd's mood didn't seem to have completely calmed down. Some treasures that were only worth a few hundred or a few thousand high-grade spirit stones were auctioned off for tens of thousands of high-grade spirit stones. There were even some who spent 10,000 upper-grade spirit stones to buy a so-called lower-grade spirit weapon that only had a superficial appearance. The craftsmanship of this low-grade spirit weapon was really bad. That person had only used his inner yuan to test it, and it had directly deformed. At this level, it was at most a low-grade treasure weapon. How could it be a low-grade spirit weapon? However, this item was auctioned off by the Great Void Auction under the name of Mysterious Treasure that can't be identified. Although that person had discovered it immediately, he could only grit his teeth and swallow it. It wasn't only because of the Great Void Auction's power, but also because the auction itself was a test of one's judgment. If one's judgment wasn't good enough and bought a fake item, could one still find someone to settle the score? That person had already said that he couldn't identify it. Regardless of whether it was real or fake, at least in terms of righteousness, the Great Void Auction wasn't weak at all. Wow. So that's just a low-grade treasure weapon. That person is really pitiful. He used 10,000 high-grade spirit stones to buy a treasure that's worth 10,000 low-grade spirit stones, Lin Yuhan said in surprise. Hearing this, Tianyang and Tai Wuji also smiled. The Great Void Auction itself wasn't very formal. Therefore, it wasn't unusual for such an item to appear. 10,000 high-grade spirit stones had become 10,000 low-grade spirit stones. This matter was just a small episode in the auction. Soon, the next item was presented. The next item is also one of the mysterious treasures that our Great Void Auction can't identify. It's a strange treasure that was discovered in the Great Void Secret Realm. The auctioneer smiled. When he thought of the appearance of the treasure, he felt a little guilty. This treasure, however, in the next moment, the treasure appeared in the center of the auction stage, exposed to everyone's eyes. F***CK. Isn't this just a piece of rock? Even the Great Void Auction can't scam people like this. A mysterious treasure that can't be identified? Isn't this nonsense? It's just a piece of rock. Who can identify anything? Go play with your eggs. The moment this treasure appeared, the entire Great Void Auction went into an uproar. However, this uproar was a bit more negative. That was because the so-called treasure was, in fact, a huge rock. It was a huge rock that was 10 feet long, 3 feet wide, and 5 feet tall. On the surface, it looked like an ordinary rock. Even if one used their soul power to detect it, they wouldn't be able to detect anything. It was no wonder that these people were so angry. Wasn't the Great Void Auction playing with them like monkeys? Originally, when they heard the words mysterious treasure, everyone was a little afraid. In the end, if they didn't salvage the situation, they would be given another piece of rock? At this moment, the Great Void Auction's reputation had been reduced by a lot. On the auction stage, the auctioneer also had an awkward expression. He didn't know what was wrong with the higher-ups to allow this piece of rock to come up. However, how could a small auctioneer like him go against the orders of the higher-ups? This rock. No, this treasure is genuine. It was found in the Great Void Secret Realm. Moreover, the Great Void Auction used many methods, but they couldn't find anything mysterious about it. That's why they let it out. The auctioneer racked his brains and stammered out these two sentences. However, when they heard this, everyone still had a smile on their faces. They weren't fools. How could they be so easily fooled? At this moment, Tianyang had nothing to do, so he used his soul power to scan the huge rock. The next moment, his eyes narrowed. Chapter 497. The auctioneer shouted with all his might on the stage, but there was no response at all. After all, no matter how one looked at it, it was just a stone. It was almost no different from an ordinary mountain rock. So what if it came from the Great Void Mystic Realm? There were many similar stones in the Great Void Mystic Realm. Could it be that all of them could be auctioned at the Great Void Auction? The auctioneer's heart was filled with bitterness. Just as he had said, this stone had an extraordinary origin. It was brought out from a ruin in the Great Void Mystic Realm by a young genius from the Great Void Auction. That young man had almost done his best for this ruin. Not only was this stone in the ruin, but it was also placed in the deepest part of the ruin, where the defenses were the strongest. The secret within was definitely not small. Unfortunately, no matter what methods the Great Void Auction used, they were unable to find out the details of this stone. They had even invited a powerful cultivator from the Heaven's Secret Sect, but he was still unable to find out anything. They could not bear to throw it away, but they could only keep it. The Great Void Auction had no choice but to auction it off. However, it seemed that the act of selling an inferior-grade treasure artifact was too shocking, causing this group of people to be traumatized by the words mysterious treasure. Until now, not a single person had bid. It was simply too tragic. If the secret within is discovered, it will definitely not be bad. Are you really not going to buy it? The auctioneer roared. Hearing this, the crowd was still indifferent. Seeing this, the auctioneer could only sigh. Wait, what's the starting bid? At this moment, a light flashed in Tianyang's eyes, and he spoke indifferently. Hearing this, the auctioneer was stunned. Ling Yuhan and Tai Wuji were also stunned. Everyone else in the auction house was stunned. They could all tell that this voice belonged to the mysterious young man who had ridiculed the crowd and killed Han Tianping and Han Tianxiong. Now, this person wanted to buy this lousy stone? Ha ha ha. I'm dying of laughter. Don't tell me you're not convinced that you didn't get the sword soul armor and are throwing money to buy this lousy stone? This lousy stone, there are as many as you want in the back mountain of my house. How about I sell them all to you for 1 high-grade spirit stone each? TSK, I thought that he was just a scheming old fox. I didn't expect him to be such a fool. I wouldn't want this broken stone even if he gave it to me. Why would he buy it? The crowd mocked. Tianyang remained unmoved and looked at the auctioneer indifferently. Ling Yuhan, who was standing at the side, turned her head to look at the broken stone. Her master's terrifying eyesight had almost never failed. It was not unheard of for rare treasures to be found from trash. However, no matter how he looked at it, this rock only had a hint of the aura of the Great Void's secret realm. Young Master Tian Yu. Tai Wuji could not help but speak up. Hearing this, Tianyang waved his hand. It's just a few spirit stones. If you really can't do it, you can just go home and play with it. I have money anyway. Revolt. Positive. Me. Yes. Money. The invisible posturing had deeply hurt Iron Wuji's young and helpless heart. Damn it, as the Sword Star City Lord, he did not dare to say such words. At this moment, the auctioneer seemed to have woken up from a dream and stammered, 1,000 low-grade spirit stones. The original starting price was 1 high-grade spirit stone. However, after the ridicule of these people, the auctioneer did not dare to be certain and directly dropped it by 10%. Hearing this, Tianyang's expression did not change. The surrounding people also began to mock. What the hell is this? The Great Void Auction is really not good this time. They dare to sell this lousy stone for 1,000 low-grade spirit stones? Although it's only a matter of a few hours of cultivation, this is too much of a scam. The crowd was furious. Hearing this, the auctioneer, who was only at the transformation realm, immediately trembled. He was afraid that the almighty sea of soul realm experts here would kill him in anger. However, the auctioneer's gaze still turned to Tianyang. What if that person really had too much money and nowhere to spend it? Tianyang naturally would not spend money recklessly. If that was the case, even if Tianyang had tens of billions of low-grade spirit stones, he would have squandered them long ago. Just now, when Tianyang probed with his soul power, he clearly sensed a trace of powerful aura hidden within the stone. That trace of aura was not much weaker than Tianyang's own. Clearly, this was the aura of a great emperor. Coming from the Great Void secret realm, and having the aura of a great emperor, there was only one possibility: Great Void Emperor. Anything related to a great emperor, even if it was just a basin, was priceless. The aura of a great emperor contained within the stone was extremely dense. Clearly, it was not an ordinary stone that was stepped on a few times. However, it was sealed very well by the Great Void Emperor. Otherwise, the people of the Great Void Auction would not have been unable to see anything. 1,000 low-grade spirit stones? This price is a little high. However, although he had seen through the stone's secret, Tianyang still raised his voice and said with dissatisfaction. Hearing this, the auctioneer's face turned ashen. At this moment, a middle-aged man stood up from the side. He had a trace of 6th level C of Soul Realm Spirit King's aura. 1,000 low-grade spirit stones can be lowered even further. Even if I give it to you for free, there is no harm," the middle-aged man said. Hearing this, the auctioneer's eyes widened. "Head steward?" Hearing this, everyone was shocked. They looked at the 6th level C of Soul Realm Spirit King with incomparable shock. This person, hidden in the crowd, was actually the Great Void Auction's head steward? This concealment technique was a little too good. However, Tianyang would not hesitate for a second because of this person's identity. He looked at the middle-aged man's face and said indifferently, "Auctions are the means of merchants. Merchants value profits. I don't believe that the Great Void Auction would be so kind." Hearing this, the middle-aged man's eyebrows twitched. He looked at Tianyang with some surprise. This person's bearing now seemed to be completely different from that arrogant aristocratic family's son from before. However, the middle-aged man was a merchant after all. Naturally, he would not care too much about these details. He said, "Of course. I can make the decision and give it to you for free. However, if one day you discover the secret within, you must share it with us. 1,000 low-grade spirit stones in exchange for a secret? This business of yours is not very honest," Tianyang said with a faint smile. Hearing this, the middle-aged man's expression changed slightly. He looked deeply at Tianyang. He had a feeling. Could it be that Tianyang had already seen through some tricks? At this moment, the middle-aged man even had the thought of directly snatching it and studying it again. However, thinking of his countless failures before, he immediately calmed down. "Of course not. If the secret is true, then you are my Void Trading Company's VIP," the middle-aged man said. Hearing this, everyone's pupils shrank. "Void Trading Company?" Hearing this, Tianyang's expression changed slightly. He also laughed lightly. Deal. Chapter 498. After being in the central region for more than a month, Tianyang had a certain understanding of the various factions in the central region. The Void Trading Company behind the Great Void Auction was the one that Tianyang understood the most. This was because the Void Trading Company had existed for tens of thousands of years, and it had managed to survive until the great destruction of the civilization. 10,000 years ago, Tianyang had frequently gone to the Void Trading Company to auction some items. He had not expected that 10,000 years later, he would once again have dealings with the Void Trading Company. The Void Trading Company was a first-rate faction. It had 16 Spirit King powerhouses under its command, 18 Spirit Sea Realm cultivators, and countless Tao Fire Realm and Primordial Transformation Realm cultivators. If these powerhouses were really united, the Void Trading Company would even be comparable to a martial sacred ground. However, because of the trading company, it was naturally impossible for them to be completely united. However, it was enough to make the Void Trading Company a transcendent existence that was above the average first-rate faction. These people had not expected that the Void Trading Company was behind the Great Void Auction. Similarly, they had not expected that the Void Trading Company would actually give a young man who did not even look 20 years old a VIP status because of a stone. The VIP of the Void Trading Company was comparable to an elder of a second-rate faction, regardless of strength or status. Did I hear wrongly? The Great Void Auction is actually the Void Trading Company. I was wondering why no one had any ideas about the Great Void Auction and why no one had any idea about it. Every year there would be a few auctions that would last for decades. It turns out that it is the Void Trading Company. Such a huge entity would actually give a young man in the Tao Fire Realm a VIP status. If I had known earlier, I would have asked for the price. Countless people were either shocked, envious, jealous, or angry. However, none of this could cover up the fact that Tianyang had become the most dazzling person in the entire venue at that moment. Outside the auction house, the two brothers, Han Tianping and Han Tianxiong, stared at Tianyang's back view. They were about to grind their teeth to pieces. This was the person who had cheated them of 1,500 5 million high-grade spirit stones. This was the person who had publicly humiliated the city lord mansion of Venus City. And now, this person had become the focus of the entire venue. Deal? That's right. Men, quickly give this great void divine stone to this young hero. Hearing these words, the 6th level Sea of Soul Realm General Manager nodded his head. Although he didn't know Tianyang at all, he had a premonition. This smiling young man might give him a pleasant surprise. Tianyang received it with a calm expression. However, the words of the Spirit King's chief steward made him a little concerned. Void Divine Stone? It seemed that this stone was definitely related to the Taishu Emperor. Unfortunately, Tianyang glanced at the head chief. This was related to the inheritance of the Great Void Emperor. Even if he shared the secret with them, it would be useless. There was only one chance for the inheritance. As for handing it over to someone else? What a joke. Wouldn't he be fulfilling his promise if he told the Void Trading Company after he found the inheritance? In any case, they had only said that they would share the secret, but not the opportunity behind the secret. Then, one by one, the auction items went up for auction, but Tianyang was too lazy to make a move. His thoughts were completely focused on the Great Void Divine Stone. Even if it was a high-grade spiritual weapon, the sky-breaking flame armor, he only took a few more glances at it. This sky-breaking flame armor was indeed, as Tai Wuji had said. The requirements for the owner were extremely high. If Tianyang was not wrong, to make the sky-breaking flame armor recognize him as its owner, he would at least have to control a spiritual fire. Spiritual fire. How could a rare item of heaven and earth be so easy to find? Tianyang was already very lucky to be able to obtain the spiritual fire of destruction in the Northern Wilderness secret region. After leaving the Northern Wilderness region for more than a year, Tianyang had not seen another spiritual fire. There was not even a bit of news about it. This showed how rare spiritual fires were. The man who had spent 3 million high-grade spiritual stones to obtain the sky-breaking flame armor would probably cry himself to death. However, this was someone else's business after all. Tianyang was too lazy to care. He kept the Great Void Divine Stone and left immediately. However, this Great Void auction had caused a sensation in the east of the central region. Firstly, the Great Void auction was backed by the colossal Void Trading Company. Secondly, a mysterious young man had mocked everyone and caused the death of the Golden Star City Governor's young master. He had even made a deal with the Void Trading Company. These two pieces of news were like a storm. In just a few days, they had spread throughout the east of the central region. Everyone was only surprised by the first piece of news. The Great Void auction could not have been held for so long without a backer. Many people had also guessed the possibility of the Void Trading Company. However, the second piece of news shocked countless people, especially when they found out that the person was from a third-rate force, the Stars Swordplay sect. Zhou Tong was so busy in the Stars Swordplay sect that he was in a terrible fix. In his heart, he admired Tianyang immensely. It had only been a few days, and you had already created such a huge piece of news. I am impressed. As the main character of this matter, Tianyang was completely unaware. He had been staying in the governor's mansion for 3 consecutive days. This Great Void Divine Stone is indeed extraordinary. It looks and senses like a very ordinary mountain rock. In the end, the moment I made a move, I was repelled. Tianyang sized up the Great Void Divine Stone that was 5 times his size and nodded slightly. Legend had it that the primordial Emperor Shi Su and the Great Void Emperor seemed to have an inexplicable relationship. This had almost become an eternal mystery in the Sky Continent. However, this was something that even Tianyang in his previous life could not figure out. Now he understood. The primordial Emperor Shi Su and the Great Void Emperor had nothing to do with each other. The method on this Great Void Divine Stone and the primordial Emperor Shi Su's Shi Su technique were 2 completely different paths. However, thanks to the primordial Emperor Shi Su, Tianyang had finally found a way to break it. The great void is formless and the primordial void is formless. This great void divine stone itself is a magic treasure. If I use virtual primordial true essence to bombard an important point, then the secret of this great void divine stone can be revealed. Tianyang chuckled. In the beginning, he had obtained the incomplete Shi Su technique in the Lingyun sect's outer sect martial skills pavilion. Therefore, he could also use virtual primordial true essence. If this stone was still in the Great Void auction, they would not be able to find a way to open it even if they lived for another few hundred years. It's here. The soul power of the peak ascension realm circulated rapidly. Virtual primordial true essence condensed on Tianyang's finger. In the next moment, he pointed his finger. Boom! The entire great void divine stone burst into rays of bright light, as if it was tearing apart the night sky. Then, rays of light were released, and the great void divine stone directly disintegrated. The solid stone from before had turned into stone powder on the ground, almost burying Tianyang's feet. And in the center of the stone powder, a miniature sword that was shining with light but seemed to be illusory was lying quietly on the ground. Chapter 499. It was a small sword that shone with an illusory light. The moment he saw the small sword, Tianyang's eyes narrowed slightly. The Taishu Emperor uses a sword as well? Tianyang muttered. The Great Void Emperor lived in the ancient era that was even longer than 10,000 years ago. He was only a few thousand years younger than the Red Dragon Wu Zun. Therefore, the records of the Great Void Emperor in Heaven Continent only had a small name and a brief summary. If the Great Void Emperor had not left behind a Great Void Mystery Realm, there would only be a name left in this world. However, after the destruction of the civilization, there were not many records left behind for the Great Void Emperor. Therefore, Tianyang knew about the Great Void Emperor's weapon. If it's a sword, I can spar with it, but this person is already dead. Tianyang muttered. Then, he walked forward and picked up the small sword. The small sword was not long, only about the length of 2 palms. The decoration was also very simple. However, the majestic aura it contained made Tianyang squint slightly. The Great Void Emperor was not much weaker than he was in his previous life. Tianyang probed with his soul power, but he did not find anything. After all, not every treasure left behind had the soul brand left by the owner. However, Tianyang had a feeling that this small sword could only show its true brilliance after entering the Great Void Mystery Realm. Now, after that, Tianyang cleaned up the stone powder and used the spirit annihilation flame to incinerate it. He then left and returned to his room to cultivate. If nothing unexpected happened, there was not much time left before the Great Void Mystery Realm opened. In these few days, even if he could not break through to the half-sea of Soul Realm, it would not hurt to consolidate his true yuan. In other parts of the Sword Star City, many genius cultivators below the Spirit Sea Realm had also gathered. In other huge cities, there were also many geniuses gathered. This was because the Great Void Mystery Realm was about to open. Among them, there were even some old men who had been stuck at the half-sea of Soul Realm for many years. Naturally, they would go to the Great Void Mystery Realm to seek an opportunity to break through. Winds and clouds converge, dragons and snakes converge. This was the most accurate summary of the Great Void Secret Realm. 3 days later, Tianyang and Ling Yuhan walked out of the City Lord's mansion. Both of them also had a token in their hand. Due to Tai Wuji's sudden appearance, Tianyang's original plan to put Ling Yuhan into his interspatial bag before bringing her in was naturally useless. Furthermore, if he really did that, Ling Yuhan wouldn't be able to obtain any point. She wouldn't even be ranked, let alone first place. Young Master Tian, the Great Void Mystery Land, was created by the Great Void Emperor in the Primordial Age. There are countless treasures in it, and the spiritual chi of heaven and earth is abundant. However, many ferocious beasts have also been born. The weakest of these ferocious beasts have the strength of the second level of the Tao Fire Realm, and the strongest, even Spirit Sea Realm cultivators have to avoid them. Although young Master Tian's strength is already extremely strong, when you encounter ferocious beasts that can contend with Spirit Sea Realm cultivators, it's best to be decisive. Don't be greedy for points, Tai Wuji said. Hearing this, Tianyang nodded slightly. The number of points was determined by the number and level of the ferocious beasts killed. A second-level Tao Fire Realm ferocious beast was naturally only worth 1 point. A third-level Tao Fire Realm was only worth 10 points. A half-step Spirit Sea Realm was worth 100 points. A peak half-step Spirit Sea Realm was worth 1,000 points. A first-level Spirit Sea Realm was worth 10,000 points. As for the stronger ones, they were calculated according to the first level of the Spirit Sea Realm. After all, not many people could kill ferocious beasts of that level. Was there a difference between 10,000 and 20,000? Geniuses who could reach this level wouldn't care about these points. We're here. The three of them flew at an extremely fast speed. Very soon, they arrived at a vast plain. At this moment, the power of the sun gradually poured onto the plain, and lines of formation patterns slowly appeared. This is the teleportation array closest to the Great Void Mystery Land. The Great Void Mystery Land is outside of the central region. It will only appear at certain times. Therefore, it's not just Sword Star City. There are similar arrays near other huge cities that connect to the Great Void Mystery Land. Tai Wuji explained. Then, he raised his head and looked at the people around him. His expression gradually became serious. Young Master Tian, your previous actions were too eye-catching. There are definitely many people who want to find trouble with you in the Great Void Mystery Land. When the time comes, you must act according to your ability, Tai Wuji said. Hearing this, Tianyang nodded slightly and looked at these people indifferently. Most of them were cultivators below the Spirit Sea Realm. Other than a few old people, most of them were young people. These youngsters looked at Tianyang with eyes that were either filled with rage, contempt, killing intent, or disdain. There were many different emotions. Among them, most of them were angry and murderous. It seemed that the wave of mockery at the Great Void Auction a few days ago was very successful. The ones with the most murderous intent were undoubtedly the two brothers, Han Tianping and Han Tianxiong. After being cheated of 1.5 million upper spirit stones, anyone would be furious. Han Tianping and Han Tianxiong looked coldly at Tianyang as thoughts flashed through their minds. The reason why they had not attacked before was because Tai Wuji was protecting them in Sword Star City. However, once they were in the Great Void Mystery Land, Tianyang would have no one to rely on. When the time came, Tianyang would become a plaything for them to trample on. The two brothers had already started to plan how to make Tianyang pay back the spirit stones that he had cheated them of. Tianyang looked at the two of them speechlessly. His murderous intent was obvious on his face. Were these two idiots afraid that Tianyang would not be able to tell? You want to kill me? Tianyang laughed softly. Hearing this, the faces of Han Tianping and Han Tianxiong darkened. At this moment, Tianyang laughed softly. Can the two of you do it? It wasn't just the Han Tianxiong and Han Tianping brothers who were enraged. Even the others were enraged. Arrogant. Too arrogant. Tianyang, doesn't he know that there is always someone better than him out there? When the real geniuses make their move, this arrogant Tianyang will die a violent death. He only knows how to talk big. After entering the Great Void Mystery Land, who knows where he will run off to? Everyone was furious. Hearing this, Tianyang smiled again. He felt that the proficiency of his group mockery skill was almost full. At this moment, as the sun reached its peak, the runes under everyone's feet became clearer. In the next moment, a terrifying energy storm appeared. Boom! A deep space door opened. In just a few breaths, it expanded to a huge area. When everyone saw this, their hearts trembled. They were extremely excited. Chapter 500. Boom! A terrifying explosion erupted from the sky, accompanied by countless lightning arcs that blasted in all directions. Seeing this, the expressions of the countless youths who had just entered the Great Void's secret plane changed greatly as they looked over in shock. What's that? Why do I feel like I'll be blasted to death just like that? Don't tell me there's some ferocious beast wreaking havoc. There's only lightning and no strange phenomenon. It's definitely not the birth of a treasure. Let's run. Idiot, what are you standing there for? Do you want to be struck to death by lightning? Hurry up and run. The crowd shouted. Soon, the people around the thunderstorm scattered like birds and beasts. Not long after, Tianyang walked out of the thunderstorm with a speechless look on his face. At this moment, his hair was all messed up by the lightning. If not for the strength of his true dragon body, he would have been blasted to pieces. This great Void Emperor really knows how to play dirty. I didn't do anything when I just entered and I was struck by lightning. With a surge of quintessential essence, Tianyang returned to his original appearance. He held a mini-sword in his hand and could not help but mutter. If not for the mini-sword, he would not have been blasted to such an extent. 10 minutes ago, the Great Void's secret realm has opened. Seeing the rapidly expanding space door, the crowd was shocked. In the next moment, the younger disciples rushed in. Tianyang, how dare you cheat us of 1.5 million upper spiritual stones? Wash your neck clean and wait for me in the Great Void's secret realm. Han Tianxiong's face was full of hatred. As a disciple of the Mountain River sect, when had he ever suffered such a setback? In terms of IQ and strategy, he had been completely crushed. Others might think that Tianyang was just a good-for-nothing, but he did not think so. How could someone who could display such terrifying strength at the Genius Gathering be a good-for-nothing who only knew how to throw money around? It was obvious that Tianyang had set up a trap that targeted them. Therefore, Han Tianxiong and Han Tianping hated Tianyang to the extreme. They could not wait to kill Tianyang. Hearing this, Tianyang smiled faintly. You're not qualified to kill me. Then, Tianyang flipped his wrist and the mini-sword from the Void Divine Stone appeared in his hand. He walked in. Damn it. Big brother, let's go too. Han Tianxiong's face was full of anger. He called out to Han Tianping and followed him in. Then, hundreds of geniuses stepped into the space door. Tens of thousands of geniuses from other places also entered the Great Void Mystery Land. Great Void Secret Realm. With a flash of silver light, Tianyang came to the top of the mountain. Feeling the spiritual chi of heaven and earth that was much more abundant than that of the Stars Swordplay sect, he smiled. The natural spirit chi here is indeed not bad. If I can train for a couple of months, I might be able to step into the Sea of Souls realm. Tianyang smiled. However, every time the Great Void Secret Realm opened, it would only be open for 3 months. 3 months later, Tianyang would probably be 17 years old. Speaking of which, why is there no reaction from the mini-sword after entering the Great Void Secret Realm? Tianyang raised his hand and looked at the mini-sword in his hand. In the next moment, the mini-sword seemed to feel the change in its surroundings. The entire small sword began to heat up, and it began to emit rays of light that were tens of thousands of feet long. Then, it was the terrifying thunderstorm that covered the sky and earth, and was enough to kill countless geniuses. After recalling, Tianyang turned his head and looked behind him. Countless dire beasts had died in this thunderstorm, and the mountain peak that Tianyang had been standing on had also been pulverized by the thunderstorm. At this time, the token in Tianyang's hand that was used to record his points suddenly trembled. The number on it began to refresh rapidly. From 0, it began to rise crazily. With every breath, it would increase by more than 10 points. In the end, after around 10 breaths' time, Tianyang's points had increased from 0 to 3,251. Opening the list, Tianyang's name was in first place. He crushed the second place with 3,000 points. This is a little. Tianyang was speechless. Could it be that the token used the thunderstorm as a way to clear the area? However, the thunderstorm was not in vain. With more than 3,000 points, he had defeated everyone. F***ck. More than 3,000 points. Who is this Tianyang? Why is he so awesome? On the other side of the Great Void Secret Realm, the handsome young man who had just killed a nest of Second Heaven Dao Fire Realm demonic beasts took out his token. Just as he wanted to see his ranking, his eyes widened. More than 3,000 points was more than 10 times his own points. Third Heaven Dao Fire Realm? This must be a joke. However, this Tianyang's strength is really not to be underestimated. The young man muttered and then walked out of the forest. Tianyang's terrifying number of points had deeply moved his soul, causing him to want to kill his way through the entire Great Void's secret realm. If anyone saw this person, they would definitely exclaim in shock. This was because this person was currently ranked second on the hunting list, from the Sun Moon sect, a first-rate force, Jun Aoyang. On the other side, Han Tianping and Han Tianxiong looked at the hunting list in disbelief. Their expressions were as ugly as if they had just eaten **T. How is this possible? How is this possible? Tianyang is from a third-rate force. How can he have such strength? Han Tianping roared. Hearing this, Han Tianxiong's expression was extremely ugly. Could it be that this kid was so lucky that he encountered multiple nests of beasts? Otherwise, it's impossible for him to have such terrifying points. Han Tianxiong said. Hearing this, Han Tianping nodded. Although the possibility was extremely low, he could only believe it. Other than this, was there any other explanation? Outside the Great Void Secret Realm, in the largest city in the eastern part of the central region, an old man leisurely took a sip of wine from his flask. Then, he casually waved his hand and opened a space projection. It's been 10 minutes. My Lil Yang should be ranked first. The old man chuckled. Then, he looked at the projection that had stabilized. Pooh! The old man spat out a mouthful of precious wine. He looked at the scene in shock. Tianyang? What the hell? How could my Lil Yang lose to this person? More than 3,000 points? Did you assassinate 3 half-step Sea of Soul Realm beasts? At this moment, an 8th-level Sea of Soul Realm middle-aged man pushed open the door. Dad, what's wrong? The old man glanced at the middle-aged man and handed over his wine flask expressionlessly. Drink some water first. The middle-aged man took the wine flask doubtfully. This wine was extremely precious to his father. How could he bear to let him take a sip? However, the middle-aged man still took a sip. This kind of wine that could increase one's cultivation base was rare. Then look at this. The old man was expressionless as he moved the space projection. Chapter 501. At this moment in Sword Star City, Tai Wuji looked at the hunting list in front of him, extremely excited. Young Master Tian is truly young Master Tian. Even the Sun Moon sect and the Heavenly Demon cult are suppressed. Tai Wuji said excitedly. On the other side, Elder Ku Shan looked at the hunting list with a gloomy expression. This was because his family's Han Tianping and Han Tianxiong were only ranked in the 1,000th place. They had only killed a few third-level Dao Fire Realm ferocious beasts and could not even compare to the others. Humph! This Tianyang must have used some trick. Otherwise, how could he have obtained more than 3,000 points in such a short time? Elder Ku Shan snorted coldly. Hearing this, Tai Wuji laughed mockingly. He's still better than that precious junior of yours from the Mountain River sect. This little sword disappeared after being a lightning rod once. What's going on? Tianyang muttered. At this moment, the little sword was lying quietly in Tianyang's palm. Whether Tianyang used his inner yuan or soul power, there was no reaction at all. Speechless, Tianyang put it away. In any case, this little sword must have something to do with the inheritance of the Taishu Emperor. Otherwise, it would not have been hidden so deeply. Tianyang was about to turn and leave when an angry roar came from behind him. "I didn't expect you to be here." An arrogant snort was heard, with a strong murderous intent. "Humph!" The Tianyang who slapped so many people in the face at the Gathering of Geniuses and was so impressive at the Taishu auction and now on the hunting list has been caught by us. At this moment, a beautiful woman walked out and looked coldly at Tianyang. "Now, just wait for your death." Seeing this person, Tianyang remembered. Wasn't this person the person who jumped out after he killed Han Tianpeng and a passerby during the Gathering of Geniuses? He seemed to be called Yen something or Yen something. Back then, he had attacked Ling Yuhan, so Tianyang had a slight impression of him. Looking at this person's eyes, it seemed like he wanted to kill him. Tianyang's eyes narrowed slightly. It had only been less than 2 hours. Even if he killed these people, he wouldn't get many points. It would be a little difficult if he still had to make a move. At this moment, the woman snorted coldly. "Do you think you can escape by remaining silent? Uncle Lu, kill him. Offending me is the greatest sin in your life." The woman snorted coldly. Hearing those words, an old man behind her immediately walked forward. His eyes were filled with killing intent as he looked at Tianyang. "You're the Tianyang who taught Han Tianpeng and Yi Qing a lesson during the Gathering of Geniuses, and even heavily injured the eldest miss?" Hearing this, Tianyang smiled and immediately understood. This unknown fellow probably had some self-awareness and knew that he was no match for him. That was why he called this old man over. From the old man's sharp fingers and flexible joints, he was probably an assassin. Compared to Tianyang, who slaughtered the heavenly Yin mountain branch in the eastern part of the Heaven's Vault territory, he wasn't inferior at all. If a genius of a generation can grow up, he'll at least be a Sea of Soul realm expert. Unfortunately, he's too young and too arrogant. When you reincarnate in your next life, remember my words. Uncle Lu snorted coldly. In the next moment, the true essence in his hand surged and he directly attacked. Ghost shadow footwork. Uncle Lu roared. In the next moment, his true essence condensed and his entire body seemed to disappear between heaven and earth. Immediately after, a bone-piercing cold wind came from Tianyang's back. An extremely sharp light shot towards Tianyang's neck. Middle-grade Earth-class martial technique, Cold Bone Claw. Uncle Lu screamed, and the true essence of a half-step Sea of Soul realm expert instantly exploded. Endless cold air almost filled the entire world. That chilling murderous intent, which seemed to be able to freeze and shatter one's heart, exploded at this moment. Your strength is not bad, and your cultivation of this martial technique is not bad. At this moment, Tianyang spoke indifferently, and the true essence in his body slightly fluctuated. "It's a pity that you're an accomplice to a villain." In the next moment, terrifying true essence instantly erupted and directly blasted Uncle Lu away. That cold bone claw was also directly shattered into powder. Uncle Lu spat out blood and heavily smashed onto the ground. A few of his bones were broken. Seeing this, the woman's expression immediately changed greatly. She never expected that Uncle Lu, whom she had spent hundreds of thousands of high-grade spirit stones to hire to attack once, would actually be so weak in front of Tianyang. Uncle Lu had even used a low-grade Earth-class martial technique. Once it was used, even a Sea of Soul realm expert would suffer some injuries if caught off guard. As for Tianyang, he didn't even move. Just the release of some unknown energy shattered Uncle Lu's attack and sent him flying. Was this really the strength of a third-level Dao Fire Realm cultivator? It's only right that you were taught a lesson for being arrogant. However, since you killed someone, then I can't let you live. Tianyang didn't even look at Uncle Lu. Back then, it was easy for him to kill the general manager of the Heavenly Yin Mountain branch, let alone the current him. Although the current Uncle Lu's life wasn't in danger, He had suffered countless internal injuries from this shock. He constantly coughed out blood, and it was obvious that he didn't have the ability to fight anymore. What are you doing? The woman looked at Tianyong, and a look of fear flashed across her face. She hurriedly took a few steps back. You can't kill me. If you kill me, the power behind me will definitely not let you off. This is not any other place. There are countless hidden dragons and crouching tigers in the central region. The power behind me can crush you, a person from a third-rate power, to death with a single finger. The woman roared, but her body couldn't stop trembling. Hearing this, Tianyong smiled faintly. At the tip of his finger, the annihilation spirit fire quietly rose. I've heard these words countless times from the mouths of countless people. In the end, the power behind the people who said these words either died or was destroyed. There are also many that exist in name only, Tianyong said indifferently. In the next moment, the annihilation spirit fire instantly increased by countless times. With me here, don't even think about making a move against the young miss. At this time, Uncle Lu rushed out at an unknown time and roared. The true essence in his body violently fluctuated, and he was actually going to self-destruct. Your strength is not bad. If you have the opportunity, it's not impossible for you to break through to the Sea of Soul Realm. It's a pity that you're going to die here. Tianyong looked at Uncle Lu expressionlessly, and the annihilation spirit fire in his hand directly shot out. Boom! The annihilation spirit fire burned fiercely, and Uncle Lu's true essence was instantly burned into nothingness. In the next moment, it directly swallowed Uncle Lu's body. A peak half-step Sea of Soul Realm expert dead. Immediately after, Tianyong turned his head and looked at the woman who was about to lose control of her bladder. A cold look flashed across his eyes. Even though this woman was somewhat beautiful, so what? If she had to be killed, she would be killed. In the next moment, Tianyong's finger condensed a ray of light and directly pierced through the woman's head, tearing her soul sea apart. The dignified young miss of the Yen family also died here. Chapter 502. After killing the two of them, Tianyang's expression was calm. He casually collected their tokens and left. Tianyang would not even bat an eyelid if he killed two people, even if they were an old man and a woman. In a battle, there were only those who deserved to be killed and those who did not. Without a doubt, these two people deserved to be killed. Since they deserved to be killed, Tianyang would not show them any mercy. Two poor bastards. They must have come looking for trouble from the start. TSK, they only added up to 100 points. What's the point? Tianyang pursed his lips. After transferring the points to himself, he threw away the two tokens that had been eliminated. After obtaining the points, if the points returned to 0 for more than 10 hours, or if the owner died and the points returned to 0, the token would be eliminated. As for whether the owner was dead or alive, that was not the hunting board's concern. In the Great Void Secret Realm, the closer to the center, the more opportunities and spiritual energy there are. Let's go take a look at the center. Tianyong muttered to himself. Then, he rose into the air and flew towards the center of the Great Void Secret Realm. As Tianyong flew, the mini sword emitted a faint light that grew stronger and stronger. How long has it been? Hundreds of people have already been eliminated. It's only been 8 hours, and people have already been eliminated. It's obvious that these people are all dead. Han Tianping and Han Tianxiong looked at the number of people on the hunting board, and their hearts trembled. In just a few minutes, more than 10 people had been eliminated. It was hard to say if there would be 80,000 people left after a week. Although the Great Void Secret Realm was filled with opportunities and treasures, it was also filled with danger. That's why we have to protect ourselves. I've already joined the Mountain River sect. This Great Void Secret Realm is to raise my status. Big brother, you haven't joined any factions yet. This time, you have to get a good result. Han Tianxiong said. Han Tianping nodded, then hesitated. But Tianyang already has more than 5,000 points. That's 10 times more than the second place Jun Aoyang and 15 times more than the third place Yi Qingyu. To be able to maintain this position for so long, Tianyang's strength must not be weak. Don't tell me that we're not going to avenge ourselves? Han Tianping said. Hearing this, Han Tianxiong sneered. How is that possible? He cheated us of 1.5 million upper spiritual stones. How can we not take revenge for this? 1,500,000 high-grade spirit stones is equivalent to 15 billion low-grade spirit stones. Even if it's our Venus City's City Lord Manor, if we want to take out such a huge sum of money, we would have to suffer a huge loss. Isn't Tianyang rich? Then, this huge sum of money will be repaid with his life. Han Tianxiong raged. Hearing this, Han Tianping was slightly stunned. Then, he opened his mouth and looked like he wanted to say something. Big brother, what do you want to say? Just say it. If I'm not wrong, you want to ask if we can beat him? Han Tianxiong laughed. Hearing this, Han Tianping nodded. One look and they could tell that Tianyang's strength was extraordinary. If the two of them were to act rashly, they might even be killed by Tianyang in an instant. Back at the Genius Gathering, Han Tianping had been easily defeated. Now Tianyang had displayed unparalleled strength. The two of them might not be able to beat him. I already knew that Tianyang's strength was extraordinary, so I've already prepared a plan. Han Tianxiong sneered. In the next moment, his interspatial bag shook, and the inner yuan in his body trembled slightly. A small compass and a huge formation appeared in his hands. I've absorbed a bit of the aura of the heavenly sun from this feng shui compass, so I can easily find the heavenly sun. As for this spell formation, it's my most powerful killing move to kill the heavenly sun. For these two treasures, I've spent a lot of my sect contribution points in the Mountain River sect just to kill Tianyang. Now I'll definitely succeed. Han Tianxiong laughed heartily. Hearing this, Han Tianping felt the majestic aura from the two treasures and nodded in awe. He clenched his fists, looking as if victory was already in his hands. With these two treasures, wouldn't killing a heavenly sun expert be as easy as flipping one's hand? Tianyang is nearby right now? Han Tianxiong's eyes narrowed slightly, then he immediately leaped into the air. Then, let's not delay. This Tianyang has more than 5,000 contribution points. Of course, the sooner we kill him, the better. The two of them flew up and headed in the direction that the compass was pointing at. This hunting leaderboard is really disgusting. Tianyang could not help but mumble to himself as he wiped the blood off his palms. Out of the 100,000 contestants, only a few hundred had become enemies with him. However, along the way, he did not know anyone at all. The number of people who wanted to kill him was even more than the number he had drawn in the beginning. After all, the number 1 spot on the hunting leaderboard was the biggest target for hatred. In order to get Tianyang's 5,000 contribution points, these people were willing to do anything. However, most of them became part of Tianyang's contribution points. Only a few managed to escape with their powerful Dharma treasures. However, they were also severely injured by Tianyang. There was almost no place for them in the top 10,000 of the hunting leaderboard. Let me see how many I've killed along the way. Tianyang looked at the token in his hand. Because it had just been activated, most of the contestants only had a few dozen or 100 points. It was not a lot. Those who had more points were the top 10 on the hunting leaderboard. Of course, many a little makes a mickle, and the points Tianyang gained from killing them were considerable as well. The current ranking on the hunting leaderboard was as follows. First, Tianyang of the Stars Swordplay Sect, 5,891 points. Second, Jun Aoyang of the Sun Moon Sect, 639 points. Third, Yi Qingyu of the Sky Demon Cult, 488 points. Fourth, Ling Yuhan of the Stars Swordplay Sect, 287 points. Fifth, Yu Ruling of the River Moon Sect, 286 points. There was almost a gap between the top 3 and the top 5, just as there was a huge gap between the first and the top 3. Apart from the thunderstorm at the beginning, Tianyang did not kill many pharaohs. The reason why his points rose so quickly was all thanks to these children of wealth, who did not know their own limit. On the other hand, Jun Aoyang and Yi Qingyu were struggling to kill pharaohs. Tianyang had left them in the dust. An hour ago, Tianyang only had 5,200 points, while Jun Aoyang had 520. An hour later, Tianyang had almost 700 points, while Jun Aoyang was only a little over 100. That was the difference. Tianyang was thinking about flying, and did not pay much attention to his surroundings. At that moment, his soul power suddenly stirred, and Tianyang immediately came to his senses. His flying momentum came to an abrupt halt. "You didn't get hit? Humph. I still have a backup plan. 9 cycles of immortal refining formation, shift formation." With a wild roar, billowing true yuan condensed, and the huge formation directly shifted to cover Tianyang's head. Chapter 503. 9 Revolutions, Immortal Refining Formation? Upon hearing these words, Tianyang's expression changed slightly. "It's this formation?" Tianyang had made countless guesses about Han Tianping and Han Tianxiong's method. Formations were undoubtedly the most likely. However, he did not expect it to be the 9 Revolutions Immortal Refining Formation. 10,000 years ago, the 9 Revolutions Immortal Refining Formation was extremely famous. Whether it was for eradicating internal enemies or exterminating the demon clan, it had made great contributions. This was because the 9 Revolutions Immortal Refining Formation was a legendary rank 5 formation. It was comparable to a Sea of Soul Realm battle formation. Ha ha ha. Are you afraid now? Tianyang, you dared to humiliate the City Lord Mansion of Gold Star City and cheat us of 1.5 million upper spiritual stones. You should have expected this day to come. Han Tianping laughed loudly. Han Tianxiong, who was beside him, also laughed coldly. The two of them held the formation map in their hands and were in the safest place. No matter how strong the 9 Revolutions Immortal Refining Formation was, it was just a bunch of formation patterns. To the two masters of the formation, it was completely ineffective. However, to Tianyang, this was extremely terrifying. Rank 5 formation. With your strength, it's impossible to set it up. Even if you rely on the formation map prepared beforehand, it's still the same. Tianyang stood in the middle of the 9 Revolutions Immortal Refining Formation and looked indifferently at the two people standing in the air. Hearing this, Han Tianxiong and Han Tianping's faces darkened. They snorted coldly. "So what? We can still kill you." In the next moment, Han Tianxiong channeled his true yuan and charged forward. The 9 Revolutions Immortal Refining Formation instantly erupted with an unparalleled shunguang that blasted towards Tianyang. If this is the real 9 Revolutions Immortal Refining Formation, I might have a headache. Looking at the violent rays of light that came from all directions, Tianyang smiled faintly. "However, this incomplete formation is not enough to deal with me." In the next moment, Tianyang punched out. 108 Dragon Chi dragons formed, and the power of the true dragon body was completely unleashed. Boom! With a single punch, the surroundings were annihilated, the space shattered, and all beasts submitted. Countless vicious beasts prostrated themselves on the ground. And in the sky, Tianyang punched out, shattering this beam of light. Immediately after, 108 Dragon Chi dragons instantly shot out, turning into 108 huge fist prints, and blasted towards the countless rays of light. Boom 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 boom. Countless attacks exploded, and many of the dragon aura dragons were also shattered by the counterattack. However, the remaining dragon aura dragons did not dissipate. Instead, they charged directly towards Han Tianxiong and Han Tianping in the sky. What? This Tianyang is actually so powerful. Seeing this, Han Tianxiong and the others' faces changed drastically. They looked at the dozens of Dragon Chi dragons that were charging towards them. Although they were powerful, they would definitely die if they were hit. Damn it! 9 revolutions, immortal refining formation, 9 sword radiance. Han Tianxiong snorted coldly. The true essence in his body surged out once again and was injected into the array diagram. Countless array runes shone brightly as 9 rays of sword light shot out. Bang! 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 The dozens of Dragon Chi dragons and the 9 rays of sword light collided violently. The dragons roared and the sword light flashed. Seeing this, Tianyang's eyes narrowed slightly. There are even 9 rays of sword light? It seems that the 9 revolutions immortal refining array is not too badly damaged. Tianyang muttered to himself. At this time, the remaining dragon aura dragons had already been shattered by the 9 rays of sword light. The remaining 3 rays of sword light charged towards Tianyang fiercely. Haha! Tianyang, this is the treasure of my mountain river sect. It was of famous existence 10,000 years ago. Isn't it easy to deal with a mere Dao Fire Realm cultivator like you? Give me your life. Han Tianxiong laughed maniacally. His true essence flowed rapidly and continuously into the remaining 3 rays of sword light. They directly pierced through the space and charged towards Tianyang. Each of the 3 rays of sword light contained Han Tianxiong's control of the power of space and his understanding of ultimacy. Its power was enough to easily kill a Dao Fire Realm cultivator at the 3rd heaven. Of course, that was referring to an ordinary Dao Fire Realm cultivator at the 3rd heaven. After so many years, the problem with the 9 rays of sword light still hasn't been eliminated. Because it's an incomplete version, it's even worse. Looking at the 3 rays of sword light, Tianyang shook his head and sighed. Hearing this, Han Tianxiong was slightly stunned. Then, he snorted coldly. Stop pretending! Then, the speed of the 3 rays of sword light became even faster. Whoosh! With a loud sound, the 3 rays of sword light arrived in front of Tianyang. Ah! I'd like to see how you're going to block it now. Han Tianxiong mocked. The 3 rays of sword light exploded with supreme power and fiercely suppressed Tianyang. At this time, Tianyang sighed softly and said, "This is my dark history." In the next moment, a ray of sword light shot out from Tianyang's finger and directly attacked the 3 rays of sword light. It didn't push the true origin to the extreme, so it wasn't condensed enough. Its power was focused on sharpness, so it wasn't flexible enough. Unfortunately, it was magnified by the incomplete version. This kind of sword technique shouldn't appear in this world in the first place, okay? Tianyang roared. In the next moment, the ray of sword light suddenly exploded with a terrifying ray of sword light and directly tore the space apart. Seeing this, Han Tianping was instantly horrified. Han Tianxiong's expression also changed drastically. However, this was not the end. The closer it got to the 3 rays of sword light, the more powerful the ray of sword light became. In the next moment, it violently shot out like a sword from the heavens. Boom! The 3 rays of sword light were almost like paper and were torn into pieces by the ray of sword light. However, after destroying the 3 rays of sword light, the ray of sword light showed no signs of slowing down and ruthlessly attacked Han Tianxiong again. What? Han Tianxiong's expression changed drastically. Seeing this, Tianyang laughed coldly. You dare to use someone else's dark history to show the person involved. You really have guts. That's right. The 9 sword light in the 9 revolutions immortal refining formation was Tianyang's masterpiece from 10,000 years ago. At that time, Tianyang was only a slightly stronger Sea of Soul Realm sword cultivator. When he was invited, he created a sword technique that could be activated by the formation and integrated it into the formation. The 9 revolutions immortal refining formation was a collection of the creations of countless experts similar to Tianyang. It was no wonder that it was so powerful. The nine-sword light that Tianyang created was also a powerful sea of soul realm sword technique that could shock the world. However, fate made fools of people. Not long after, Tianyang directly became a sword emperor. Who knew how many sword techniques stronger than the nine-sword light he could create? However, the 9 revolutions immortal refining formation had already been completed. Tianyang could only grieve as he faced this hero who had killed the demon. It was not easy for him to not see this thing. In the end, 10,000 years later, this Han Tianxiong was still showing off in front of him. And it was a pirated version. If this could be tolerated, what else could be tolerated? Go back to the underworld and repent. Tianyang roared angrily. Seeing this, Han Tianping's expression changed drastically. As for Han Tianxiong, he was completely terrified. This move had a terrifying power that was enough to severely injure him. After all, this was a move that Tianyang made in anger. Although he did not use any martial arts techniques, the power was just as strong. There's no other way. I can only use that move. Han Tianxiong's mind raced. In the next moment, his heart sank. A mouthful of flames shot out from his hand and engulfed the ray of sword light. The flames were monstrous like the sun in the sky. Seeing this, Tianyang's pupils constricted slightly as he recognized the origin of the flames. Chapter 504. Buri Heavenly Flames. It was a natural treasure, a 4th-level spiritual fire. It absorbed the power of the sun and formed underground lava. It was not easy to find it, not to mention resisting the terrifying power of the flame and absorbing it as his own. Buri Heavenly Flames, manipulating the sun. Although it was a bit exaggerated, one could see its power. Legend had it that those who mastered the Buri Heavenly Flames could borrow the power of the sun. You can actually use the Buri Heavenly Flames before me. This is a trump card that even my big brother doesn't know about. Tianyang, you are indeed strong. Han Tianxiong looked coldly at Tianyang. The golden Buri Heavenly Flames burned all over his body, and the power of the sun flowed into his body. The true yuan that he had consumed to use the 9 revolutions immortal refining formation and the 9 sword radiance was now being recovered crazily by the power of the sun. Legend has it that the Buri Heavenly Flames can borrow the power of the sun. It seems that the legend is true. Tianyang said indifferently. Spiritual fires were extremely rare, and the Buri Heavenly Flames, which were produced in a desperate place, were even rarer. As a result, some abilities had become legends due to the passage of time. During the inner yard competition, Tianyang disdained to devour Fire King Zhao Wuji's spiritual fire. However, this 4th-level spiritual fire, the Buri Heavenly Flames, Tianyang would be crazy if he let it go. Of course it's true. Han Tianxiong laughed loudly. The golden Buri Heavenly Flames on his body grew stronger and stronger, and the true yuan in his body was completely recovered. The power of the sun was still strengthening Han Tianxiong's body. While recovering, it was also strengthening Han Tianxiong's aura. At this moment, Han Tianxiong's aura was constantly rising. In terms of strength, he was not inferior to an ordinary 1st-level sea of Soul Realm. The power of the sun, the body of the sun. Although the body of the sun that I have displayed is not even 1/10,000th of the legendary body, it is more than enough to kill you. Han Tianxiong threw his head back and roared. The power of the sun surged into his body, causing his aura to soar to the limit. The next moment, an extremely ferocious and rough armor appeared on his body. Together with the sword soul armor that Han Tianxiong was already wearing, he looked even more powerful. I originally planned to use this move against experts like Jun Aoyang and Yi Qingyu. However, your strength isn't weak either. Originally, I only wanted to use the 9 revolutions immortal refining array to deal with you. But now, you will die in the hands of my sun body. Han Tianxiong laughed maniacally. He looked at the Tianyang in front of him with disdain, as if the Tianyang in front of him had become a toy that he could trample on as he wished. Ever since Han Tianxiong had obtained the Bu-Ri heavenly flame, he had been in the limelight. He had never met a worthy opponent. He had only come to the Great Void's secret realm to gain experience. Now that he had suffered such a huge setback at the hands of Tianyang, Han Tianxiong could not take it any more. He wanted to kill Tianyang. Oh? A mere sun body. It will be difficult for you to kill me. Tianyang laughed lightly. Hearing this, Han Tianxiong's face darkened. He immediately charged out. Brat who doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth, die. Han Tianxiong roared angrily. The Bu-Ri heavenly flame condensed into a huge longsword. The sword's sole armor provided great power, and the sun body exploded with shocking light. In the next moment the sword slashed out. Boom! This slash seemed to be able to split the mountains and rivers. A mountain that was dozens of miles high was slashed into dust by this slash. However, Tianyang seemed to be taking a stroll. He moved a foot to the left and easily dodged the slash. I didn't hit you? However, I only let you live for a few seconds. Now, it's time for you to die. Han Tianxiong's eyes flashed with surprise. Then, he picked up the huge sword again and charged towards Tianyang. Earth upper class martial technique. Sun-Moon Slash. Han Tianxiong roared angrily. The Bu-Ri heavenly flame transformed into a huge golden sword that shone brightly. He slashed out again. Seeing this, Tianyang smiled and moved another foot to the side, easily dodging the attack. You missed twice in a row. I think you should stop using your sword. Embarrassing. Tianyang said with an infuriating smile on his face. Hearing this, Han Tianxiong's face darkened even more. He thought that after he used the Bu-Ri heavenly flame, even if Tianyang did not immediately submit to him, he would definitely be beaten to a pulp. The result? He used all his strength in both slashes, but he could not even touch a hair on Tianyang's head. Once or twice, it's just luck. Again. Sun-Moon Slash. Han Tianxiong snorted coldly and slashed out again. However, at the moment of this slash, Tianyang seemed to be able to predict the future. He moved 3 feet to the right and perfectly dodged the slash. What? Seeing this, Han Tianxiong was completely shocked. Could Tianyang really predict the future? His slash had completely locked onto Tianyang, but he still could not hit him. That's the third slash. Can you do it? After Tianyang said that, his shock turned into rage. Bastard, how dare you humiliate me like this? I'll tear you to pieces. Han Tianxiong roared angrily. In the next moment, he attacked again. The huge flaming sword in his hand suddenly exploded with an incomparably terrifying light. This light seemed to illuminate the entire world. The light of the sun was overshadowed. The power of the sun was constantly released and gathered in the sword. Not far away, countless people looked up in shock. Seeing the sword that was as dazzling as the sun, their hearts were filled with awe. Who was the one who unleashed this sword technique? Jun Aoyang and Yi Qingyu were not here. Seeing this, Tianyang's eyes narrowed slightly. He was now in the 9 Revolutions immortal refining formation. Coupled with this slash, his situation was extremely bad. Peerless Earth-class martial skill. Heavenly dragon slaying sword. Han Tianxiong roared. This time, an incomparably surging aura erupted and locked onto Tianyang. This time, Tianyang definitely could not dodge. In other words, this slash could hit Tianyang even if he fled to the ends of the earth. Tianyang could only meet force with force. This is not good, Tianyang frowned slightly. The True Dragon Core's 108 True Dragon patterns were released. The True Dragon's power circulated, and the divine desolate sky spirit art stirred up countless true yuan. If nothing unexpected happened, this slash was enough to kill the Purple Sun Sect's ancestor, Xing Pingshi, who was at the peak of the first level of the Sea of Soul realm. In fact, he might even be stronger. No choice, I can only. It's time to attack. Tianyang sighed softly. Then, facing this resplendent sword, black light surged and the annihilation spirit fire burned. Styx River Sword Attack. Chapter 505. Sky Extreme Sword Art, Third Sword, Star Burial. Tianyang roared. The divine wilderness sky spirit art in his body surged crazily, and a terrifying sword with majestic power burst out in an instant. It was as resplendent as a galaxy, but it carried the power to destroy stars. This sword was many times stronger than when he fought against the spirit of demonic chi. After so much time of tempering, this sword was no longer the same as before. Sky flames. Raging flames incinerate the heavens. Seeing this, Han Tianxiong's expression changed greatly. He roared and slashed out again. In the next moment, a galaxy-like sword light and a flame-like sword chi fiercely collided. Boom! Heaven and earth shook, the space shattered, and the billowing aftershocks spread out. The mountains under their feet collapsed, and the river changed its course. At this moment, Han Tianping was already scared silly. His whole body trembled as he watched the exchange between Tianyang and Han Tianxiong, and his heart was filled with fear. Han Tianping was naturally clear about his brother's strength, but he did not expect this. Tianyang's strength was actually able to contend with his brother, Han Tianxiong, who had displayed the sun body and whose strength had reached the peak of Sea of Soul Realm. No, it was not contending, it was suppressing. Boom! Boom! Countless explosions rang out as Han Tianxiong's heavenly flames fluctuated rapidly. However, in the face of the Star Burial Sword, all of this was just an illusion. As a sword of the sky extreme sword art, how could the Star Burial be simple? Damn it! How could this peak third heaven Dao fire realm have a terrifying power that even I can't contend with? Han Tianxiong's face fell as he roared in horror. However, his blazing sky flames and sword chi were being destroyed by the Star Burial Sword with an unstoppable force. Seeing this scene, Han Tianxiong's face turned completely pale. His strongest sword could not do anything to Tianyang. Didn't that mean that this sword strike could easily kill him? Damn it! Sun Heavenly Flame, Great Sun Shield! Han Tianxiong roared. The heavenly flame mat rolled out and turned into a shield, blocking in front of Han Tianxiong. This move was something that even a first-level Sea of Soul Realm warrior would not be able to shake. However, all of this was just a useless struggle in the face of absolute power. Boom! The giant shield formed by the power of the sun instantly shattered, and the Star Burial Sword only shook a little. Seeing this, Tianyang smiled. It's such a waste for this spiritual fire to be in your hands. I won't stand on ceremony then. Tianyang smiled faintly. In the next moment, the sword radiance exploded with endless light and engulfed Han Tianxiong. Ah! Han Tianxiong roared crazily. His body was cut by the sword chi. Countless wounds tore open. Unparalleled pain rushed into his mind, almost destroying his soul. No. I still have one more move. At this time, Han Tianxiong bit the tip of his tongue to wake himself up. Ignoring his serious injuries, he forcefully activated his true essence and took out a token. Senior brother Fengyun, lend me a hand. Han Tianxiong roared. The true essence in his body burned and poured into the token. At this time, the token exploded with a terrifying light. It directly dispersed the Star Burial Sword around Han Tianxiong and turned into a human figure, looking down at Tianyang from above. Rolling pressure was released. It was the power of a second-level Sea of Soul Realm warrior. I don't care who you are. For the sake of Nie Fengyun, a Saint Realm disciple of the Holy Land of Martial Arts, let me go. The figure said faintly. Hearing this, Tianyang's expression changed slightly, and a faint smile appeared on his face. Nie Fengyun? That's right. Nie Fengyun nodded and looked at Tianyang arrogantly. No matter what kind of power you come from, in front of the Holy Land of Martial Arts, you're nothing but a dog. Let him go. Otherwise, I'll let you experience the wrath of a Saint Realm disciple. Hearing this, Tianyang's expression was calm, but his heart was cold. Han Tianxiong, who was beside him, was already laughing loudly. Ha 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 ha. Tianyang, aren't you very capable? In front of my senior brother Fengyun, aren't you still a coward? If I lose to you today, it's my loss. One day, I'll take your head with my own hands. Big brother, let's go. Han Tianxiong did not care about his injured body and laughed mockingly. Then, he carried the frightened Han Tianping and was about to leave. At this time, Tianyang smiled faintly and reached out his hand. Boundless space energy rippled and directly blocked their path. Did I say that I'll let you go? Hearing this, Nie Fengyun's face turned gloomy. Tianyang, you're not giving me face? Who do you think you are? Why should I give you face? Tianyang laughed lightly. Hearing this, Nie Fengyun's face turned extremely ugly. You refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. How dare you disobey me, Nie Fengyun? Go to hell. Nie Fengyun roared angrily. His peak second-level sea of soul realm true yuan gathered and turned into a fist that fiercely blasted towards Tianyang. Upper-grade Earth Tier Martial Technique, Mountain River Seal. Styx Sword Technique, 4th Sword, Tao of Azura. Tianyang laughed coldly and slashed out with the Styx Sword. Monstrous killing intent was released. Sword light filled the sky and directly shattered Nie Fengyun's fist. Then, the sword move did not lose momentum and destroyed Nie Fengyun's true yuan clone. How dare you? Nie Fengyun's face was filled with disbelief. However, in the next moment, he turned into ashes and directly shattered. Nie Fengyun, a Saint Realm disciple of the Holy Land of Martial Arts, was easily defeated by Tianyang just like that. Seeing this, Han Tianxiong and Han Tianping both trembled. Their fingers trembled as they pointed at Tianyang. You actually destroyed Senior Brother Fengyun's clone. Senior Brother Fengyun will definitely not let you go. You don't have to worry about that. Tianyang smiled faintly. In the next moment, he slashed out with his sword again and killed Han Tianxiong and Han Tianping. Tianyang also took out the origin source of the Buri heavenly flames. Looking at the struggling golden flame in his palm, Tianyang smiled faintly. The power of a level 4 spiritual fire is indeed extraordinary. The annihilation spiritual fire is still not comparable. Then, Tianyang formed a hand seal and the devouring heaven seal gathered. The devouring power exploded and sucked the Buri heavenly flames into it. If he devoured the Buri heavenly flames, his strength would increase exponentially. Thousands of miles away, in a holy land of martial arts at the center of the central region. Crack! An exquisite teacup was crushed. However, the hand that crushed the teacup did not have a single drop of water on it. Damn Tianyang! How dare you not give me face? You even destroyed my true yuan clone. Go! Investigate. Find out Tianyang's identity and find him. I want him to die a horrible death. Nie Fengyun roared. P.S. Happy Mid-Autumn Festival, everyone. I'm wondering if I can update 4 times today. Chapter 506. Spiritual fire was extremely precious and rare. It was already a great fortune for an ordinary person to encounter one. If one wanted to refine it, besides great luck, one also needed great strength. Otherwise, the backlash from the spiritual fire would be enough to burn one to ashes. Previously, Tianyang was able to discover the existence of the spiritual fire of destruction in the northern wilderness mystery region purely by luck. Otherwise, he would not have been able to obtain it along the way. Now that Han Tianxiong, the boy of fortune, had given him the Buri heavenly flame, Tianyang naturally accepted it without hesitation. Boom! After being swallowed by the devouring heaven seal, the Buri heavenly flame still did not stop resisting. Its previous host had just died, and now it was going to be refined into someone else's power. The Buri heavenly flame naturally had an instinctive resistance. However, feeling this resistance, Tianyang frowned slightly. This resistance doesn't seem to be from a spiritual fire that has recognized a master. Tianyang muttered to himself. He had seen many spiritual fires. Some were stubborn, some were docile, and some were stubborn. Spiritual fires that had recognized a master would not have strong resistance. However, the Buri heavenly flame's resistance was so strong that if Tianyang's cultivation was just a little bit weaker, it would directly break out of the seal. Could it be that Han Tianxiong could not suppress the Buri heavenly flame, so he used that method? Tianyang muttered to himself. Then, he released his soul power and penetrated deep into the Buri heavenly flame. The Buri heavenly flame felt this extremely terrifying soul power and immediately trembled in fear. It did not dare to resist anymore. A rank 4 spiritual fire corresponded to the Tao fire realm. However, this was only a correspondence. According to the actual situation, even the weakest rank 4 spiritual fire had the strength to fight against a sea of soul realm practitioner. Amongst the 4th level spiritual flames, the Laying Sun heavenly flame was considered as one of the more powerful ones. If it was at its peak, it would be able to contend with a spirit king. However, no matter how powerful a spirit king was, in front of a sword emperor, it was nothing but trash. After being touched by Tianyang's soul power, the Buri heavenly flame was instantly terrified. Tianyang also knew everything about the Buri heavenly flame. It turned out that the Buri heavenly flame was encountered by Han Tianxiong by chance. At that time, the Buri heavenly flame was just a flame that had just formed. Han Tianxiong naturally wanted to devour and refine it. Unfortunately, the Buri heavenly flame was so powerful that it almost burned Han Tianxiong to ashes. However, the Buri heavenly flame also suffered some damage. Hence, Han Tianxiong and Buri heavenly flame, and Buri heavenly flame. And Han Tianxiong used the Buri heavenly flame. The Buri heavenly flame. However, Tianyang was able to tell with a single glance that there was a deeper meaning behind it. The Laying Sun heavenly flame was a miraculous item of heaven and earth. It was definitely not something that a mere half-step sea of soul realm warrior could suppress. Even if Sky Sun didn't make a move, the Laying Sun heavenly flame would definitely grow up and devour him. Moreover, the Buri heavenly flame did not even have Han Tianxiong's soul imprint. It was simply a half-free flame. At that time, Han Tianxiong would die from his own flame. This Han Tianxiong is really stupid. He was fooled by a flame. It was originally a half-free flame. Now I'm going to refine it into a flame of slavery. No wonder it has such a strong resistance. Tianyang chuckled. Then, he looked at the Buri heavenly flame. A ray of light flashed in his eyes. The Buri heavenly flame was born as a flame, but it had such a strong soul power. In the future, it might be able to cultivate the legendary flame body. At that time, the Buri heavenly flame's strength would not be as weak as it was today. If Tianyang rashly devoured it, there might be a risk of a backlash. Since that's the case, there's no need for your soul power to exist. Tianyang snorted coldly. Rolling soul power was released and crushed toward the Buri heavenly flame. The Buri heavenly flame's body trembled, as if it had sensed some danger. It suddenly broke through the fear in its heart and began to fluctuate. Flames were released and attacked Tianyang. However, Tianyang's soul power easily destroyed all of the Buri heavenly flame's attacks. The moment the Buri heavenly flame released its attack, Tianyang's soul power invaded the origin of the Buri heavenly flame. The devouring heaven seal's devouring power was fully activated. Boom! The enormous devouring vortex opened and directly swallowed the Buri heavenly flame. In the process, the Buri heavenly flame's last bit of soul power was also erased. Apart from its powerful strength, it had returned to its original appearance. The soul power that had schemed against Han Tianxiong was completely obliterated. Only the most basic soul power was left. In the next moment, Tianyang opened his mouth and directly swallowed it. The divine desolate heavenly spirit art circulated at an extremely fast speed. Rays of golden light were released and firmly captured the origin fire seed of the Buri heavenly flame. The current Buri heavenly flame was in its initial state, so it naturally did not have much resistance. Under the rapid circulation of the divine desolate heavenly spirit art, the Buri heavenly flame was completely devoured and planted with Tianyang's soul imprint. It had completely become Tianyang's spiritual fire. That's right. Legend has it that the Fire Emperor of ancient times controlled 7 spiritual fires. The strongest one was only on par with my Buri heavenly flame. I don't cultivate the Tao of fire. In terms of spiritual fire control, I'm close to the Fire Emperor. I'm really too powerful. Tianyang smiled slightly. Then, he was about to use the Buri heavenly flame to test its power. At this moment, an unforeseen event occurred. The divine desolate heavenly spirit art instantly erupted with a brilliant light. The annihilation spiritual fire's origin fire seed also began to fluctuate violently at this moment. It spread towards the Buri heavenly flame's origin fire seed. The Buri heavenly flame's origin fire seed was the same. It released streams of origin energy and swept towards the annihilation spiritual fire seed. What's going on? Tianyang's expression changed slightly. He had never heard of a rebellion after devouring 2 spiritual fires. If that was the case, wouldn't the Fire Emperor have already self-destructed and died? How could he devour as many as 7 spiritual fires? Boom! A terrifying sound came from Tianyang's body. Tianyang's face instantly paled and he spat out a mouthful of blood. The strange thing was that a black gold flame suddenly spread out from the mouthful of blood and burned it completely. What the hell? Tianyang's expression changed drastically. At this moment, the strange movement in his dantian erupted once again. Boom boom boom. Countless sounds rang out. It was as if countless bombs had detonated in Tianyang's body. His blood and qi churned and his entire body trembled. At this moment, Tianyang had an idea and immediately activated the divine desolate heavenly spirit art. The golden light that belonged to the divine desolate heavenly spirit art was released and wrapped around the 2 fire seed. The 2 fire seeds also instantly quieted down. Following that, puff. Chapter 507. Black and Gold Flames. Looking at the flames in his dantian that did not belong to the spiritual annihilation fire or the Buri heavenly flames, Tianyang was immediately dumbfounded. What was going on? If not for the fact that he could sense that this black and gold flame was still under his control, Tianyang would have thought that something had entered his dantian. That's not right. The spiritual annihilation fire is gone, and so is the Buri heavenly flames. Then, wouldn't this be? Tianyang's expression changed slightly. He thought of the previous incident where the spiritual annihilation fire and the Buri heavenly flames had corroded each other. His face darkened slightly. If that was the case, then it could be explained. However, why would these 2 flames fuse together? This divine desolate heaven spirit art was clearly created by me. In the end, I didn't even understand the profoundness within it. Tianyang chuckled. He thought of the situation where the change disappeared after he desperately circulated the divine desolate heaven spirit art. It was very easy for him to deduce. The fusion of the 2 spiritual fires was because of the divine desolate heaven spirit art. Forget it, let's try it first. The fusion of a 4th and 3rd level spiritual fire. Don't divide it evenly, Tianyang muttered to himself. Following that, his finger moved slightly and a black and gold flame appeared in his hand. The raging flames burned under the sun. However, that dazzling light seemed to cover the sun. Staring at this flame, the sun seemed to be nothing. It looks pretty good on the outside. Now, let's test its power. Tianyang chuckled and looked at the bare stone mountain that was created by the battle between Han Tianxiong and himself. He casually threw it. This flame did not contain Tianyang's true essence. It was only the most basic flame power. He could not help but wonder how powerful the merged flames would be. Boom! An extremely terrifying explosion sounded. In the next moment, the entire space seemed to be distorted by the high temperature that was released in an instant. The entire stone mountain was wrapped in the black and gold flames. Following that, the black and gold flames automatically absorbed the power of the sun to strengthen themselves and directly devoured the stone mountain. 1,000-meter-tall mountain had actually been swallowed up by the pure power of the heavenly sun's fire. This power, even if the 7 flames of the Fire Emperor of the spiritual sea realm were to attack at the same time, it wouldn't be more than this. Tianyang was dumbfounded as he stared at the black gold flames. The Fire Emperor was an existence that could be said to have reached the pinnacle of the Fire Tao. However, Tianyang, who didn't cultivate the Fire Tao at all, had actually used flames at the level of the Fire Emperor. If Fire Emperor was still alive, he might have been angered to death by Tianyang. "You can't bully me like this." However, Tianyang regained his composure in the next moment. With a wave of his right hand, the black gold flames returned to his palm. In terms of power, this spiritual fire is not much weaker than a peak rank 4 spiritual fire. I can even feel that this black gold flame has yet to reach its peak. It's a pity that the consumption of this spiritual flame is quite large. I'm unable to take it out and use it individually. In the future, I can't casually take it out to smash people. Tianyang muttered to himself. This was just a pleasant surprise. Although Tianyang was excited, he wasn't so excited that he lost his mind. His sword skills, fist skills, and physical strength were all stronger than the black gold flames. Therefore, Tianyang wasn't so happy that he couldn't extricate himself from it. However, this flame definitely doesn't exist in Sky Continent. Let me give it a name. How about the Heavenly Annihilation Flame? Tianyang smiled gently. After confirming his plan, he kept the Heavenly Annihilation Flame back into his body. Then, Tianyang put away the remains of the 2 Han brothers who had died on the ground and soared into the sky, heading towards the center of the Great Void Secret Realm. After Tianyang left, a black-clothed man quietly arrived at this place. When he saw the corpses of Han Tianxiong and Han Tianping, his expression didn't change. "Humph. Tianyang, what did you do to deserve to be ranked above me, Yi Qingyu? It's a pity you left. Otherwise, the first place would be mine, Yi Qingyu of the Sky Demon Cult." Outside, Tianxiong and Tianping are both dead? Ku Shan exclaimed in disbelief when he saw the 2 men who had been removed from the top 1,000 of the hunter leaderboard. Hearing that, Tai Wuji, who had been watching from the side, immediately laughed gloatingly. There are countless dangers and fortuitous encounters in the Great Void Secret Plane. Although your nephew's talent is not bad, there's still a risk of dying. Young Master Tian is still the best. He easily took the first place, while Jun Aoyang, who's in second place, is still more than 3,000 behind him. Tai Wuji laughed. Ku Shan hadn't given him any face before, and now that Ku Shan's juniors were done for, Tai Wuji naturally had to gloat. However, Ku Shan's expression turned sour when he heard that. "What are you saying, Lord of Sword Star City? Could Tianping and Tianxiong have been killed by Tianyang?" "I didn't say that." Tai Wuji shrugged and turned to look at the hunter leaderboard again. Young Master Tian is truly amazing. He's now left Jun Aoyang behind by 4,000. This Yi Qingyu isn't bad either. He's about to take the second place. Ku Shan's expression darkened when he saw Tai Wuji's nonchalant attitude, and he clenched his teeth so hard that they almost shattered. Who doesn't know about the conflict between Tianyang and our Tianping and Tianxiong? Tianping and Tianxiong died not long ago, and Tianyang's points soared. He must have killed them. He must have killed them and taken their points. When the Great Void Secret Realm ends in 3 months, Tianyang will be dead for sure. Ku Shan roared inwardly. However, no one cared about his opinion at the moment. Everyone's eyes were focused on the hunter leaderboard. Those who could make it to the top 100 of the Hunter leaderboard were undoubtedly geniuses among geniuses. Those who could make it to the top 10 were all prodigies. If they didn't die, they would become extremely powerful beings in the future. They might even have to kneel down and lick their boots. This Tianyang is truly amazing. Even now, the gap between him and Jun Aoyang hasn't been closed by much. Jun Aoyang isn't bad either. To be able to collect more than 2,000 points in such a short time, his strength is also extremely strong. Heavenly Demon Cult's Yi Qingyu is also very powerful. He was in 3rd place at the beginning, and now he's almost at 2nd place. Everyone was discussing. Naturally, they were talking about the top 3. However, they wouldn't let go of some outstanding geniuses either. Outstanding but not outstanding geniuses might not be accepted by the major factions, but these Sea of Soul Realm experts also had the qualifications to accept them as disciples. If they accepted a genius disciple, they would also be honored when they matured in the future. Inside the Great Void's secret realm, Tianyang's expression changed slightly, and he stopped in midair. In his hand, the mini sword suddenly burst out with brilliant light, turning into a huge road map. Chapter 508. The Great Void Emperor's Land of Inheritance? Tianyang looked at the mini sword in his hand and his expression froze. He knew that the reason why the Great Void Mystery Realm had been open for so many years was because of the Great Void Emperor's inheritance. Countless people had rushed in because of this, and this mini sword, which came from the Great Void Divine Stone, suddenly had a road map. It was hard not to associate it with the Great Void Emperor's inheritance. However, looking at this distance, even with the speed of the Void Treading secret technique, it would take at least 10 days to get there. Let's just observe along the way. Tianyang muttered to himself. The Great Void Mystery Realm was extremely vast. It was not inferior to some of the realms. He was now in the southern part of the Great Void Mystery Realm, and the Land of Inheritance was in the central part of the Great Void Mystery Realm. It would be extremely difficult to get there. Let's take one step at a time. For now, let's take a rest. Tianyang looked at the gradually darkening sky and nodded slightly. He found a cave, entered it, cleaned it, and rested. The killing and fighting in the Great Void Mystery Realm, which had been fighting for the entire day, gradually quieted down as night fell. The night was silent. The next day, Tianyang woke up from his cultivation. The surrounding heaven and earth spiritual qi was absorbed into his body. The heaven and earth spiritual qi in the Great Void Mystery Realm is extremely rich. It is extremely difficult to improve Tian Yuan and Zhen Yuan. But in just one night I improved a little. I don't need 3 months. I only need 2 months to break through to the peak of half-step Sea of Soul Realm. Tianyang chuckled. He then stood up and walked out of the cave. The mini sword was still emitting a light that resembled a road map. Tianyang thought for a moment and put it away. There were countless hidden dragons and crouching tigers in the Great Void Mystery Realm. The number of geniuses was definitely not limited to the hunting list. His road map, whether it was the real Great Void Inheritance or an ordinary map of the Great Void Mystery Realm, was extremely valuable. If others saw it, it would be difficult to avoid another robbery. Tianyang did not like trouble. There's actually someone here? At this moment, 2 voices suddenly sounded from the entrance of the cave. One of them was arrogant, while the other was incomparably arrogant. Get the hell out of there! This place has been requisitioned by our Sword Star City's Hu clan. The 2 young men said arrogantly. They did not take Tianyang, who had just finished cultivating, seriously at all. Tianyang's expression turned cold when he heard that. He had heard Tai Wuji mention the Hu clan of Sword Star City before. It seemed to be a powerful clan. However, he, Tianyang, could even wipe out the Nangong clan. Could it be that he would be afraid of a Hu clan? What if I don't leave? Tianyang said indifferently. He didn't even have the intention to walk out of the cave and look at the 2 people. Hearing this, the two people's faces darkened slightly. You're not going to cooperate? Let me tell you, I am Sword Star City's Hu clan's second young master, Hu Dong. This is my big brother, Hu Tianya. Both of us are at the peak of half-step Sea of Soul Realm. If you don't come out, are you courting death? Hu Dong sneered. At this moment, Tianyang also spread out his soul power and looked at the two. The one who looked a little younger was Hu Dong. His face was somewhat handsome, and his clothes were abnormally luxurious. However, the words he said were not so pleasant to the ears. The one who was a little older was Hu Tianya. The moment he saw Hu Tianya, Tianyang's eyes narrowed slightly. He could see that this person's cultivation was much stronger than Han Tianxiong and Han Tianping. He was only a step away from the first level of Sea of Soul Realm. Courting death? However, although Hu Tianya's cultivation was somewhat out of Tianyang's expectations, Tianyang did not put him in his eyes at all. If you want to die, then come in. Hearing this, Hu Dong's face immediately darkened. Courting death. Hu Dong roared angrily. The true essence of half-step Sea of Soul Realm in his body instantly erupted. True essence condensed in his hand, and he punched out. Earth-tier high-grade martial skill, rock-breaking fist. Boom 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 boom. A violent true essence fiercely collided with the mountain wall, and the entire mountain wall instantly collapsed. Moreover, as the mountain wall collapsed, the aura of this fist became even stronger. When the last mountain wall collapsed, it would be the day this rock-breaking fist bombarded Tianyang's body. He, you have too much strength but not enough agility. This fist of yours can only be used to break rock. Tianyang smiled faintly. Looking at the shattered mountain wall and the rock-breaking fist that was madly smashing towards him, he punched out, Dragon King Divine Fist. 108 Dragon Chi dragons roared out. The Dragon King's roar resounded through the clouds. Surging dragon power was released and fiercely collided with the rock-breaking fist. Boom! The entire cave began to tremble. In the next moment, the cave directly collapsed, and Tianyang's fist had already shattered everything in front of him. The 108 dragons did not suffer any damage, directly breaking through the obstacles in front of them and bombarding Hu Dong's body. Bang! Pooh! A mouthful of blood spurted out, and Hu Dong's body flew out like a cannonball. Many of his ribs were broken, and from his mouth, many black and purple clots of blood were even spat out. It was obvious that under this punch, Hu Dong had already suffered heavy injuries that could not be more serious. What? Seeing this scene, Hu Tianya's expression changed greatly. How is this possible? He was very clear about his brother's strength. Even if he faced a first-level Sea of Soul Realm elder in the family, he would be able to withstand a few moves. However, he was directly sent flying by this mysterious person and suffered heavy injuries? Thinking of this, Hu Tianya also regretted. If he had known this would happen, he would not have been so arrogant. The person inside was obviously about to leave after finishing his cultivation, but in the end, his arrogance had instead caused the other party to be unhappy. Looking at this strength, at the very least, it was at the level of the top 10 on the hunting list. You want to kill me with just this little strength? You should take a look at yourself first. Tianyang looked at Hu Dong, who had heavily crashed into the mountain peak and caved in an extremely deep hole, and curled his lip. Hearing this, Hu Tianya's expression also turned ugly. Because the cave had collapsed and smoke was lingering, he could not see Tianyang's face clearly. Sir, my brother only said a few words, and you directly attacked. Isn't that bad? Behind us is the Hu clan, Hu Tianya said coldly, directly bringing out his own background. He did not believe that in the southern part of the Great Void Secret Realm, there was anyone who was not afraid of the Hu clan. In the eastern part of the central region, there were a total of 4 large teleportation points. One of them was Sword Star City, and Sword Star City corresponded to the southern part of the Great Void Secret Realm. In other words, the forces in Sword Star City could still be used if they moved to the southern part of the Great Void Secret Realm. Therefore, Hu Tianyao was so arrogant, thinking that Tianyang would definitely submit to the Hu clan's power. Hu clan? Hearing this, Tianyang chuckled. Just when Hu Tianya thought that this person was afraid, a fist suddenly appeared from the smoke. I've even beaten up Tai Wuji. Why would I be afraid of your Hu clan? Bang! Chapter 509. Bang! Hu Tianyao also crashed into the same mountain as Hu Dong. However, this time, because his fist was close to his face, Hu Tianyao was deeper than Hu Dong. What? Seeing this scene, the surrounding spectators who had been silent all this time were shocked. Hu Dong and Hu Tianyao were both defeated by this kid? Where did this person come from? At this moment Tianyang, who was floating in the sky, suddenly looked to the side and said indifferently, "If you don't want to die, hurry up and get lost." Hearing this, that person immediately felt as if he had been struck by lightning and hurriedly ran away. He was also terrified. If Tianyang really attacked in anger and killed him, he would have nothing to say in the underworld. At this moment, Hu Tianya relied on his slightly stronger cultivation and struggled to crawl out. He looked at Tianyang with a face full of fear. "Your face. You're Tianyang," Hu Tianya said in shock. Hearing this, Tianyang chuckled. "You also know that I'm Tianyang?" Hearing this, Hu Tianya's face immediately turned pale. Legend had it that Tianyang was lawless and did all kinds of evil. The eldest daughter of the Yen family, who had a good reputation in Sword Star City, and the helper she had invited, Uncle Lu, were dead. Han Tianxiong, who had performed dazzlingly in the last Great Void Mystic Realm and entered the Mountain River sect, who was only slightly weaker than him, was also dead. Han Tianping, whose status was even higher than Han Tianxiong, was also dead. As long as one came from the vicinity of Sword Star City, there was not a single person who did not know Tianyang's name. Yet, he had so stupidly chosen to provoke Tianyang. Wasn't this courting death? "Don't worry, I won't kill you yet. Now, bring your crippled brother and get over here." Tianyang revealed a brilliant smile and said with a smile. Hearing this, Hu Tianya nodded his head while trembling. He dragged Hu Dong, who was embedded in the mountain wall, and dragged his heavily injured body to the front of Tianyang. At this moment, Hu Tianya no longer had the appearance of a gorgeous young master. His face had caved in a lot, and the white robe on his body was also dyed red with blood. He was in a sorry state. Tianyang glanced at them indifferently before he turned around and said, "Follow me." Hearing those words, Hu Tianya nodded. Not daring to make any sudden movements, he flew over as well. At this moment, the bystander who had run away suddenly poked his head out and looked at this scene in shock. Even Hu Tianya was beaten until he followed obediently. Tianyang's strength was really too terrifying. He really wondered what kind of scene it would be if Tianyang, the #1 expert in the south of the Great Void Secret Realm, and Jun Aoyang, the #2 expert in the east of the Great Void Secret Realm. According to what this person knew, Jun Aoyang was already breaking through to the Sea of Soul Realm on the first night he stepped into the Great Void Mystery Realm. My lord, why did you bring us here?" After walking into a cave, Hu Tianya said with a face full of fear. The surrounding dark environment scared him so much that his legs went soft. Could it be that the Tianyang had called them over to satisfy his horror fetish of dismembering corpses in the dark? Why is it so dark here? This cave is not well chosen. Tianyang frowned. Looking at the dark environment, he snapped his fingers. A wisp of black gold flame suddenly rose and lit up the entire cave. Seeing that wisp of black gold flame, Hu Tianya's eyes widened. He could tell that this wisp of black gold flame was definitely not ordinary. However, as far as he knew, Han Tianxiong controlled the golden-brown heavenly flame. What was this black gold flame? "Come, tell me. Why did you suddenly barge into my cave?" Tianyang said with a chuckle. Hearing that, Hu Tianya's expression changed slightly. It seemed like he did not want to say anything. Seeing this, Tianyang smiled slightly. It's fine if you don't want to say it. However, my control over this flame can enter through all the pores on your body and torture every inch of your skin. Don't. I'll talk. I'll talk. Before Tianyang could finish speaking, Hu Tianya had already fallen to the ground with a plop. Just thinking about what Tianyang had said made him shudder. He felt that this flame was no weaker than Han Tianxiong's brown heavenly flame. If it entered all the pores on his body, would it burn again? That kind of feeling would definitely be excruciating. The reason why we want to go in is because we want to use that cave as a stronghold. Hu Tianya shouted. Hearing this, Tianyang raised his eyebrows. Stronghold? This cave had the value of being a stronghold? Come, tell me. Tianyang chuckled. Hearing this, Hu Tianya nodded and spilled everything like beans in a bamboo tube. It turned out that Hu Tianya and the others had received some news. They had discovered that there was a treasure trove of an ancient figure buried in this mountain range. This treasure trove was many times more powerful than the relics of opportunity outside. Because this treasure trove had never been opened, and the owner of this treasure trove was one of the 4 great divine generals under the Taishu Emperor. The Taishu Emperor's 4 great divine generals are Azure Dragon, White Tiger, Vermilion Bird, and Black Tortoise. These 4 great divine generals each have the strength of peak 9th level C of Soul Realm. Among them, Azure Dragon Divine General was almost a step away from stepping into the Heaven Ascension Realm. According to the news, the Divine General's cave hidden in this mountain range is Zhukei Shogun's cave. Hu Tianya explained. Hearing this, Tianyang's eyes narrowed slightly. The Taishu Emperor's 4 great divine generals. Tianyang had heard of these 4 great divine generals in his previous life and knew that they were powerful. Azure Dragon Divine General was the strongest. Although he was only at peak 9th level C of Soul Realm, his battle strength was almost comparable to a cultivator who had just entered the Heaven Ascension Realm. As for Zhukei Shogun, Tianyang also had some understanding of him. He was an expert in flames and attacks, and was also an extremely powerful existence. There was actually Zhukei Shogun's cave here. Then, it must have attracted a lot of people. Indeed, apart from us, almost everyone in Sword Star City has come. I heard that Little Demon King Yi Qingyu and Sun Moon Sex Flame Monarch Jun Aoyang are already on their way here, Hu Tianya said. Hu Tianya said. Tianyang nodded slightly upon hearing this. This was within his expectations. However, he was more concerned about Yi Qingyu's Little Demon King and Jun Aoyang's Flame Monarch King. It had only been a little more than a day since the opening, and these 2 people already had nicknames? I don't know who came up with this, but Yi Qingyu's methods are ruthless, and his strength is just as strong. Moreover, he comes from the Heavenly Demon Cult, so there's no problem with him being called Little Demon King. As for Jun Aoyang, his flames are extremely powerful, so there are people who call him Flame Monarch King. Hu Tianya said. Hearing this, Tianyang chuckled. This was quite appropriate. However, to be able to be given such a title by the public, these 2 people's strength was definitely extraordinary. What about me? Tianyang asked curiously. Hearing this, Hu Tianya hesitated for a moment. He glanced at Tianyang and said in an extremely low voice. Chapter 510. Homicidal Maniac. Upon hearing these words, Tianyang's expression changed dramatically. He could not understand why he was called a homicidal maniac. How many people had he killed in total? Because... Hu Tianya stammered again. He did not dare to look into Tianyang's eyes, for fear of seeing Tianyang's furious expression. Tianyang's notoriety was widespread in the south of the Great Void Mystery Land. If his words made him unhappy, then wouldn't it be possible for him to directly kill him? Thinking of the 700 or 800 points he had and the 400 or 500 points Hu Dong had, Tianyang might really make a move in order to secure his first place. Thinking of this, Hu Tianya's body trembled even more violently. I told you to speak, so speak. Why are you trembling? Are you possessed? Tianyang said impatiently. Hearing this, Hu Tianya trembled even more violently. He could only sigh and begin to speak. It turned out that the people Tianyang had killed were not only Han Tianxiong, Han Tianping, Uncle Lu, and the Yen family's first Mississippi. After killing Uncle Lu, he killed them on the way. Tianyang had forgotten about them. Even if there were people who escaped, most of them had broken limbs or even lost their cultivation. Under these people's propaganda, Tianyang's image became that of a homicidal maniac. Hearing this, Tianyang remembered that he had killed others. However, seeing this, Hu Tianya trembled even more. Tianyang was really a homicidal maniac who could not even remember the people he had killed. But Hu Tianya began to speak again. Hearing this, Tianyang raised his eyebrows. But what? Because some people said that you used to be called Sword King or something. Connecting it to the current title of homicidal maniac, some people called you Azura Sword King, Hu Tianya said. However, after hearing this, Tianyang's lips curled up slightly. This name was not bad. He knew the Tao of Azura and was known as the Sword King in the Firmament territory. The title of Azura Sword King was very appropriate. Forget it. Hurry up and scram. I don't need you now. After Tianyang heard the news, he naturally lost interest in Hu Tianya. They only had murderous intent towards him, but they didn't have the intention to kill him. Tianyang wouldn't kill them. However, if these two people were still asking for a beating when they wandered in the Zhukei Shogun cave, Tianyang would not be merciful. Good, good. Thank you, sir. Hearing this, Hu Tianya nodded in surprise. Then, he ran away with Hu Dong. Although he knew that with such a serious injury, it was almost impossible for him to break through to the Sea of Soul realm in the future, it was still better than being killed by Tianyang. Tianyang didn't know that after Hu Tianya and Hu Dong ran away, they didn't even dare to enter the Zhukei Shogun cave. They ran directly to the western part of the Great Void secret realm, which was tens of thousands of miles away, for fear of encountering the Azura Sword King. However, the news that the title of Azura Sword King had been recognized by Tianyang spread like wildfire. It replaced the previous title of homicidal maniac. Tianyang was naturally pleased with this. After hearing this news, Tianyang didn't leave immediately. Instead, he was thinking about something. According to the miniature sword, the Great Void secret realm most likely contains the inheritance of the Great Void Emperor. And here, the cave abode of the Vermilion Bird Divine General, one of the 4 divine generals of the Great Void Emperor, has appeared. The Azure Dragon in the east, the White Tiger in the west, the Black Tortoise in the north, and the Vermilion Bird in the south. This Zhukei Shogun Cave is in the south of the Great Void secret realm. Doesn't this mean that there are other cave mansions of the 4 divine generals in other places? Tianyang thought carefully. He suddenly felt that the Great Void secret realm wasn't as simple as a place of inheritance. If it was an inheritance, it would have been enough to pass it on to one person. Why leave others behind? If it was someone else's inheritance, it would be fine. However, the 4 divine generals' cave mansions were long-term residences. Cave mansions and inheritance were completely different. However, the Great Void Emperor's inheritance and the 4 divine generals' cave mansions existed at the same time. This was thought-provoking. The information I have is still too little. Otherwise, I would have been able to deduce most of it. Tianyang muttered to himself. Then, he put down the mini-sword in his hand and walked out of the cave. This mountain range was called the Vermilion Bird Mountain Range. He had learned this from Hu Tianya. As for Tianyang, he needed to use his own spiritual strength to find the Vermilion Bird Divine General's abode, east of the Great Void secret realm. What? We also have cave mansions of the 4 divine generals? The Azure Dragon Mountain Range? The Azure Dragon Divine General's cave mansion? F*ck, I came here for nothing. At this moment, Jun Aoyang, who had just reached the border between the east and south, couldn't help but curse when he saw the message on his communication token. He had just crossed mountains and rivers to reach the border, and now he was told that there was one in his own territory? Are you F*king kidding me? I came here for nothing. However, the Azure Dragon Divine General doesn't really suit me. Jun Aoyang pursed his lips and turned back. He knew that the south of the Great Void Secret Realm was Tianyang's territory, and he wasn't ready to clash with Tianyang now. Although the Zhuke Shogun Cave in the south of the Great Void Secret Realm was the most suitable place for him to wield a peak grade 3 spirit fire, he was an expert in the Tao of Flames and was from the Sun-Moon sect. Meanwhile, on the other side of the border, the cave mansions of the 4 divine generals have appeared in the west as well? Dressed in black, Yi Qingyu's expression twitched as he stared at the communication token in his hand. Whatever. I'm now in the south. Do your best to get the White Tiger Divine General's cave mansion. When the time comes, the Sky Demon cult would have 2 caves and would be invincible in the Great Void Secret Realm. Yi Qingyu said. The person in the west nodded in response. I promise to do my best. Then, Yi Qingyu sneered and put away the communication token. Since I'm in the south, the Zhuke Shogun Cave is definitely mine. What Azura Sword King Tianyang. He's just a stepping stone for me. Yi Qingyu laughed heartily, then channeled his true yuan and headed toward the Vermilion Bird Mountains. In the north of the Great Void Secret Realm, the appearance of the Black Tortoise Cave Mansion had shaken the entire north. However, the news of these caves' appearances had only spread for a few hours, and could not spread beyond the region. Therefore, apart from a few people who traveled across the region, no one else knew what was happening in other places. Meanwhile, in the Vermilion Bird Mountains, Tianyang's expression changed slightly as he stood in a spacious open space. Underground is the Zhuke Shogun Cave Mansion. However, there's actually a seal of the Great Void Emperor's power on it, and there's no way to break it for the time being. Tianyang chuckled. Then, he found a cave nearby and settled down. Staying here would be beneficial for observing the changes in the Zhuke Shogun Cave. Chapter 511. A few days passed. Tianyang was quietly cultivating in the cave. However, the Vermilion Bird Mountain Range was already filled with people. Most of them were from Sword Star City. Many of them disliked Tianyang, but there were also some who admired Tianyang even though they were from Sword Star City. Of course, Tianyang did not care whether they were praising or criticizing him. There are so many people. Tianyang looked at the scene in front of him and said calmly. Naturally, his cave could not hide anyone. Everyone knew that Tianyang lived there. Therefore, although they did not dare to disturb Tianyang, they all stayed beside him. There were even some who spent a lot of effort to open up a cave on the mountain peak beside Tianyang. There was no other reason than Tianyang. They already knew about Tianyang's eyesight during the Great Void Auction. That worthless stone was able to attract the Great Void Auction's chief steward. This showed how sharp Tianyang's eyesight was. Now, Tianyang could have lived anywhere, but he chose to live in an empty space with few beasts around. Naturally, he attracted a lot of attention. Tianyang was speechless about this. However, this was the celebrity effect. As long as he exposed his identity, there would always be a group of people sticking to him. The fire attribute aura is getting stronger. It seems that the Zhuke Shogun Cave will open soon. Tianyang's eyes flashed as he muttered to himself. Then, he took a step forward and appeared outside the cave. Seeing this, the crowd was shocked. Why did Tianyang come out? Could it be that the Zhuke Shogun Cave was about to open? At this moment, a chuckle was heard from the side. I've long heard of the Azura Sword King's illustrious reputation. Seeing you today, I can see that you are indeed powerful. The man chuckled. Then, with a slight movement, he appeared in front of Tianyang. Tianyang narrowed his eyes and scanned the man. Then, he said, Little devil Yi Qingyu? Not bad. Yi Qingyu nodded and looked at Tianyang. The Azura Sword King hasn't stepped out of his house for the past few days, yet he still occupies the first place on the hunting list. It's really enviable. I would like to try my hand and spar with you. How about it? Yi Qingyu's eyes flashed with a sinister light as he glared at Tianyang. The true essence within his body began to circulate. He was confident that as long as he made a move, Tianyang would definitely die without a burial ground. This was because he was extremely confident in his own strength. He was different from Jun Aoyang. Jun Aoyang wished that he had 48 hours a day to hunt beasts, but Yi Qingyu only spent half a day at most. The rest of his time was spent on other things. Even so, he was still able to occupy the third place on the hunting list, close to Jun Aoyang. Therefore, he was extremely confident in his own strength. Wow! Yi Qingyu actually challenged Tianyang. The Little Devil King and the Azura Sword King are going to clash. Yi Qingyu's strength is very strong. This time, he will definitely be one of the contenders for the Zhuge Shogun Cave. I wonder if the Azura Sword King's name is just an undeserved reputation. Anyway, it's definitely not an undeserved reputation. How can it be an undeserved reputation if he can hunt so many people and beasts? Didn't you see that Yi Qingyu and Jun Aoyang are still in the third and second places? Seeing Yi Qingyu's actions, a heated discussion broke out among the crowd. A battle between the strong, especially between geniuses like Tianyang and Yi Qingyu, would definitely attract their attention. Not only the strong could learn. For them, a battle between geniuses was more useful. Yi Qingyu was also eager to try. A bloody light flashed in his eyes. As long as Tianyang accepted the challenge, he would definitely be able to tear him in half. Not interested, Tianyang said lightly, then turned around and left. Now that the Zhuge Shogun Cave was about to open, only a fool would fight with him. Exposing his own strength in front of so many people, especially when the cave was about to open, was undoubtedly a foolish move. However, when he heard that, Yi Qingyu's body suddenly stiffened. The people around him were also stunned. Not interested? Doesn't that mean that he won't accept the challenge? Such a situation had happened before, but it was extremely rare. After all, this was a battle of dignity. If Tianyang didn't accept the challenge, wouldn't that mean that he admitted that he was inferior to Yi Qingyu? Suddenly, the crowd booed loudly. Yi Qingyu finally came to his senses and looked at Tianyang mockingly. What? The Azura King of Swords, Tianyang, doesn't even have the courage to fight? If that's the case, you should get out of the Zhuge Shogun Cave competition. A piece of trash like you can't do anything even if you're here. Hearing that, the crowd nodded. According to their understanding, geniuses had to be arrogant and proud. They had to accept all the challenges. However, they didn't know that such a person was just an idiot who blindly pretended to be pretentious. In the face of Yi Qingyu's mockery, Tianyang only smiled faintly. Let me fight. You're not worthy. As soon as he finished speaking, the crowd was so silent that one could hear a pin drop. Countless people looked at Tianyang in disbelief. That was the third on the hunting list, the little devil Yi Qingyu with unfathomable strength. How dare you say that he's not worthy? That was simply arrogant, presumptuous. Arrogant. Yi Qingyu roared. The so-called scheming and crafty schemes were instantly destroyed by Tianyang's words. Since young, he had been astonishingly talented and dazzling. When had he ever suffered such humiliation? You're the first person to say such words to me. Yi Qingyu gritted his teeth and said in an extremely cold voice, You're also the first person to die in my hands because of one sentence. Earth-class peerless martial technique, Een Soul Severing Claw. Yi Qingyu roared angrily. Rolling true essence gathered, and in the next moment, he charged at Tianyang. A huge claw condensed from black true essence appeared in the air and viciously grabbed at Tianyang's head. If this claw hit, Tianyang's head would definitely explode like a watermelon. This was the strength of the peak half-step sea of Soul Realm, the little devil Yi Qingyu. Tianyang is finished this time. Although he's strong, this is the little devil's full-strength attack. He has no way to deal with it, everyone exclaimed. And at this moment Tianyang's expression didn't change. He smiled coldly. A true dragon's shadow that was even stronger than the 108 dragons appeared on his body. He turned around and faced the huge soul severing claw with a punch. Roar. With one punch, dragons roared in all directions. Chapter 5:12. Dragon King's Divine Fist, 10,000 dragons slaughtering gods. Tianyang roared. The true dragon's dragon core that had been cultivated to the great success stage in his body erupted with dragon power, transforming into countless dragons. A dragon king as the main force, with countless dragons as support. Tianyang could easily kill Hudong without using the Dragon King's Divine Fist. If he used the Dragon King's Divine Fist, even Hu Tianyao would be easily defeated. And if he used the 10,000 dragons slaughtering gods, boom! The entire Vermilion Bird Mountain range seemed to tremble. In the next moment, the entire world began to tremble rapidly. The absolute soul-breaking claw and the 10,000 dragons slaughtering gods collided fiercely. The dragon power and Qi wreaked havoc, colliding and causing countless spatial cracks. Countless people were dumbfounded when they saw this scene. It was only when someone was seriously injured by the aftermath that they came to their senses. This was not a place where they should be. How is this possible? How can my absolute soul-breaking claw be blocked so easily? Seeing that his absolute soul-breaking claw not only failed to crush Tianyang's head but also almost exploded from Tianyang's punch, Yi Qingyu's expression changed drastically as he roared. Hearing this, Tianyang smiled faintly. If the Dragon King's Divine Fist really couldn't block it, then it would be unworthy of the title of a heaven-rank martial skill. Back then, the Dragon Sage was a figure comparable to Sword Saint Zhou Xing. If it wasn't for the fact that his strength hadn't reached the level of a Dragon Emperor, that Dragon Sage could have been titled the Dragon Emperor with the strength of the head of 10,000 dragons. How could the Dragon King's Divine Fist, which was passed down by the ancient Dragon Clan and improved by the Dragon Sage, be so simple? An ordinary Dragon King's Divine Fist was of little value to humans. To the Dragon Clan, it was a treasure among treasures. To the Dragon Clan, which had high martial talent, it was a treasure among treasures. Tianyang's dragon power was only at the level of an ordinary Dragon Clan member. However, as the true dragon's dragon core became stronger, Tianyang also understood the profoundness of the Dragon King's Divine Fist. After mastering it, it was this move: 10,000 dragons slaughtering gods. In terms of power, this 10,000 dragons slaughtering gods was not inferior to a heaven-rank martial skill. It was extremely easy to deal with this peerless earth-rank martial skill. Break! Tianyang snorted coldly. In the next moment, countless giant dragons burst forth with dazzling light and fiercely bombarded the soul-severing claw. Boom! A loud explosion was heard as the absolute soul-breaking claw was directly blasted apart by this punch. In the next moment, it directly shattered Yi Qingyu's defensive martial skill and landed heavily on Yi Qingyu's body. Boom! A loud explosion that was loud enough to shatter an ordinary person's eardrums rang out. The mighty little demon King Yi Qingyu was also sent flying by this punch. Yi Qingyu's body glowed as his middle-grade spiritual armor activated. Only then did he manage to block the punch. However, the powerful impact of the punch caused the blood in Yi Qingyu's body to churn. His internal organs felt like they were on fire and he spat out a mouthful of blood. Seeing this, the crowd was even more shocked as they looked at Tianyang with incomparable shock. Even the mighty little demon King Yi Qingyu was easily defeated by Tianyang. Didn't that mean that only Jun Aoyang, who had broken through to the first level of the Sea of Soul Realm, could possibly be Tianyang's opponent? This peak of the third level of the Dao Fire Realm was simply too powerful. I've said it before. You don't have the right to make me fight. Slowly retracting his right hand, Tianyang said indifferently. Then, he turned around and left. Yi Qingyu, who had barely stabilized his body, spat out another mouthful of blood after hearing this sentence. He was so angry that he almost fainted. He, the mighty little demon king Yi Qingyu, was actually humiliated like this? Tianyang, if I don't take revenge for this, I'm not human. Yi Qingyu roared crazily. However, Tianyang was already far away. Although he heard it, he did not care at all. To Tianyang, once a loser, always a loser. At this moment, the fire attribute spiritual qi between heaven and earth suddenly began to rapidly expand. The surrounding temperature instantly rose by quite a bit. Seeing this, the crowd's expression changed slightly. At this moment, Tianyang's mouth revealed a trace of a smile. It really came. The Zhuke Shogun cave was about to open. Why did the fire attribute spiritual qi suddenly become so dense? The crowd was puzzled. Yi Qingyu also temporarily calmed down his anger. Strangely, he released his soul power to sense the surroundings. The fire attribute spiritual qi of heaven and earth was becoming denser and denser. It was even approaching the fire attribute cultivation ground. However, there was nothing strange in the surroundings. Legend has it that the Zhuke Shogun is extremely proficient in the fire attribute technique. Doesn't that mean that the fire attribute spiritual qi suddenly became dense because the Zhuke Shogun cave is about to appear? Suddenly, a person's eyes lit up and said. Hearing this, the crowd's heart trembled. They hurriedly released their soul power and searched around. Boom! At this moment, an extremely terrifying sound erupted. It was even louder than the sound of Tianyang's battle with Yi Qingyu. However, it seemed to come from all directions. It confused the crowd and made them unable to refute it. As for Tianyang, his expression turned serious as he looked underground. Underground, the quiet Zhuke Shogun cave was breaking through the ground at an extremely fast speed. A pillar of fire condensed into Xinguang and shot up into the sky. In the next moment, within the pillar of fire, a towering cave appeared. Tianyang's expression changed. He immediately used the dragon roaming 9 heavens steps and rushed in. Seeing this, the crowd's expression changed greatly, especially Yi Qingyu. This guy, could it be that he already knew where the Zhuke Shogun cave would appear? Yi Qingyu growled. Looking at the flames shooting up into the sky, he was a little hesitant to act. Previously, when Tianyang rushed in, it was the moment when the cave appeared. The flames did not cover the cave, but now, Yi Qingyu whispered. At this moment, a person stared at the cave in the flames with wide eyes and laughed hysterically. Ha 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 ha! The Zhuke Shogun cave has opened. I, Zhu Mingmin, will be the first. In the next moment, that person rushed into the sea of fire. With a scream, he died an unnatural death. The others were the same. Almost everyone who stepped into the pillar of fire was burned to death. Not a single corpse was left intact. Seeing this, the crowd was even more terrified. Thinking of Tianyang's quick reaction, the crowd sighed. Tianyang's luck was too good. When the Zhuke Shogun cave appeared, Tianyang happened to be right next to the entrance. He rushed in casually. After a full 15 minutes, the pillar of fire that could be seen in the southern part of the Great Void's secret realm finally subsided a little. The crowd rushed in hurriedly. At this time, Tianyang had been waiting inside for a long time. This is the Zhuke Shogun cave? Are you sure this is the cave? 15 minutes ago, Tianyang looked at the scene in front of him with a dumbfounded expression. In front of him was a huge flaming cliff. There were 15 iron chains connected to his feet. Only by crossing the iron chains could he pass through. Chapter 5:13. You call this a cave abode? Tianyang couldn't help but curse as he looked at the iron chain bridge that was obviously a test. It was no wonder he didn't curse. Wasn't this just playing with him? Shouldn't a cave abode be a place where one could enter and take whatever they wanted? Why did it have to be this way? You're wearing the skin of a cave abode on the outside and the heart of a test on the inside. Zhuge Shogun, you're really tough. Tianyang couldn't help but grumble. However, he still walked up. There was a unique restriction in the Zhuge Shogun cave that prohibited flying. Otherwise, this iron chain bridge wouldn't have been set up for decoration. However, if it was just walking, it wouldn't be a problem. For practitioners, it was too easy to control their own balance. Boom! The moment Tianyang stepped on the iron chain, the hell lava underground suddenly erupted and swallowed Tianyang. F***ck. Heavenly Sun instantly raised his shield to block this wave of attack. Looking at the hell lava that left a deep scar on the mountain wall, he sucked in a breath of cold air. If this thing were to land on his body, it would be fatal. Tianyang then looked at the opposite side. The iron chain was about 50 miles long. Even if Tianyang used the dragon roaming steps, he still had to consider the smoothness of the iron chain and the attack of the hell lava underground. In other words, this small iron chain bridge not only tested his agility, but also tested his true core strength, strong reaction speed, and fast calculation ability. Otherwise, it was almost impossible to block all the hell lava with just a shield of true core strength. If this is the case, it'll be easy. Tianyang chuckled. Then, he immediately used the dragon roaming steps and rushed over. At this moment, the underground flood surged, and another wave of hell lava attacked. 30 meters ahead, that's the safe zone. Tianyang's eyes narrowed. He released the soul strength of the peak of the heavenly completion realm. His speed instantly increased, and he arrived 30 meters ahead. Move back 15 or 25 meters. This time, both the front and the back. I can't dodge it now, but I can destroy it with a single punch. Tianyang twisted and turned on the iron chain bridge, accurately and dangerously dodging countless attacks from the lava of hell. In less than 10 minutes, he had already covered 30 miles. The hell lava would rush up once every 10 seconds. Its position and intensity were not fixed. However, what he encountered the most was the beginning and the end. In the middle, he only needed to be careful and not consume too much true essence. As for the strongest attacks, Tianyang had to draw the Styx River sword to resist them. As for the weakest attacks, Tianyang could easily resist them with his own physical strength. However, the surrounding environment was somewhat special. It was filled with extremely dense flame power. Those who did not cultivate the way of fire would be suppressed. Of course, Tianyang had crossed the myriad Tao divine flame, and had even crossed it 3 times. Even if he did not cultivate the way of fire, he still had a certain level of attainment, so naturally, he would not be suppressed. However, the people behind him were having a hard time. All of this meant that after grasping the rules, Tianyang wanted to pass this stage easily. This time, it's really ruthless. If a person at the second level of Sea of Soul Realm were to face it head-on, they might even die. Tianyang looked at the lava of hell gushing out from under his feet and grinned. Then, he directly used the dragon roaming 9 heaven steps and exploded with extreme speed, dodging it. Although he could block it, he would have to consume a lot of true essence. If he could dodge it, he would be a fool. This is a cave residence? When Tianyang reached 45 miles, someone finally arrived. Looking at the chains, they were all dumbfounded. What the F***ck? Is this really a cave residence? Look, that's Tianyang. He's almost at the other side. At this moment, everyone saw Tianyang 45 miles away and exclaimed in shock. Hearing this, Yi Qingyu's eyes narrowed as he looked at Tianyang. As expected, he saw Tianyang, who was only a little distance away from the second stage. Humph. You may be strong, but I, Yi Qingyu, am not weak at all. Yi Qingyu gritted his teeth and directly climbed onto one of the chains. When the others saw this, some of them were afraid of the power of the lava of hell and retreated. More people chose to climb onto a chain and rushed forward. Idiots! Looking at those who did not observe for a while, Tianyang curled his lips and spat out 2 words. Then, he walked forward again. At this moment, the lava of hell erupted again. Damn! What is this thing? Don't come over! My armor is gone. This thing touched me. No. Bastard! How can I die here? Ah! As soon as the lava of hell appeared, many people were immediately swallowed. The lava of hell was personally set up by Zhukei Shogun. How could its power be weak? Those who were not well prepared and had low cultivation were directly swallowed and turned into skeletons in the lava of hell. Every time the hell lava swept across, dozens of people would die a violent death. Seeing this scene, many people were terrified and wanted to retreat. Yi Qingyu's eyes narrowed and his heart sank. This lava is so powerful. We have to be careful. Yi Qingyu whispered. Then, his eyes moved and looked at Tianyang. A sinister light flashed in his eyes. Ah! You are now at the end and there is no way you can retreat. In other words, your life is in my hands. Yi Qingyu laughed loudly. Then, he looked at Tianyang and raised his hand to attack. F***CK. Son of AB***TCH. Tianyang's face changed. He channeled the inner yuan in his body and stretched out his hand to block the attack. At this moment, the lava of hell swept over him again. Tianyang's face changed again. Previously, he was alone and it was easy to calculate. Now that he was disturbed, Tianyang did not know how to dodge. Damn it, I can only take it head-on. His inner yuan burst out and blocked the lava of hell. However, this time, Yi Qingyu, who was standing at the beginning, laughed loudly and attacked again. Let's see how you will die. Damn you! Tianyang's face was ashen as he blocked the punch. Then, he dodged the attack of the hell lava by a hair's breadth. Just as he was about to retaliate, the hell lava attacked him again. For a moment, Heavenly Sun actually entered a dilemma. If he advanced, he would definitely be attacked by Yi Qingyu. If he did not advance, he would definitely be attacked by the lava of hell. Retreat? He had already advanced 45 miles. How could he retreat so easily? Seeing this, the crowd sighed in shock. Sigh, Yi Qingyu's move is too vicious. He directly cut off Tianyang's path of advancement, but he also made it impossible for him to retreat. Yi Qingyu, on the other hand, was standing on the iron chain and laughing loudly. Chapter 5:14. You're the one who forced me. Tianyang's expression was cold. In the next instant, the Styx sword appeared in his hand, and he directly slashed out. Sky Extreme Sword Art, Third Sword, Star Burial. In the next instant, a resplendent sword light like a river of stars obliterated space, shattered the lava, and blocked this attack. What? Seeing this scene, Yi Qingyu's expression changed greatly. He didn't expect that at this point, Tianyang actually still had the strength to attack. Humph. So what? I only need a few more moves, and you're dead for sure. Yi Qingyu sneered. The half-step sea of soul realm true essence in his body pulsed rapidly. At this time, Tianyang sneered. You really think I'm a fool? In the next instant, light gathered in Tianyang's stick sword, and before Yi Qingyu could attack, he slashed out. Sky Extreme Sword Art, First Sword, Sky Soaring. Ignoring Yi Qingyu and blindly charging forward, the only possibility was to be heavily injured by Yi Qingyu. And if he didn't advance, he would sooner or later be swallowed by the lava of hell. Thus, Tianyang chose to strike first to gain the advantage. That sword light swept through the flames in all directions, repelling the lava of hell, and ruthlessly attacking towards Yi Qingyu. Humph! Even if you attack me and injure me, so what? You can't kill me. And I can kill you at any time. Yi Qingyu ridiculed. Hearing this, Tianyang's mouth curved in a subtle arc. Are you sure? In the next instant, Sky Soaring's sword suddenly changed direction and attacked the iron chain below Yi Qingyu's feet. Moreover, after changing direction, Sky Soaring's sword's speed became even more terrifying. In an instant, it broke away from Yi Qingyu's lock, and rushed straight for the iron chain. Tianyang! You dare! Yi Qingyu's eyes were about to split open. Looking at Sky Soaring's sword getting closer and closer, panic welled up in his heart for the first time. In a short time, it occupied his entire mind. One had to know that once the iron chain broke, then he, Yi Qingyu, would definitely fall into the lava of hell and die a violent death. After all, the lava of hell was a tyrannical existence that could easily kill Sea of Soul Realm experts. With their strength, it was simply impossible to block the might of hell's lava. Seeing this, those standing on the iron chain and those not standing on the iron chain all sucked in a breath of cold air, from their backs straight to the top of their heads. This move was even more vicious than Yi Qingyu's. It was the best plan to kill Yi Qingyu from the very beginning. Block it! Ahaf! Yi Qingyu roared, the inner yuan in his body surging wildly as he tried to block Sky Soaring's sword. Black inner yuan surged wildly, but how could Sky Soaring's sword be so easily blocked? Ignoring the fact that Yi Qingyu's strength was inferior to Tianyang's, even if it surpassed Tianyang's, it was impossible for him to block Sky Soaring's sword before it hit the iron chain. After all, Tianyang was using all his strength to speed up this sword. Bang! A terrifying sound rang out, and Yi Qingyu closed his eyes, showing a trace of despair. He, the young master of the Sky Demon cult, the little demon king Yi Qingyu, would actually die in a place like this. The others were also shocked. They were shocked by the little demon king's despair, and shocked by Tianyang's schemes and strength. Yi Qingyu could not keep attacking Tianyang, but Tianyang's sword was too powerful, so powerful that the little demon king could not block it. Still, nothing happened for a dozen seconds after the loud sound. Yi Qingyu opened his eyes in confusion, only to find that the iron chain beneath his feet was still fine. It was the same for the others' iron chains as well. Hellish lava was still churning beneath the ground, unleashing countless powerful waves of lava, but they did not see Sky Soaring's sword. Idiot! Hellish lava can't do anything to this iron chain, and I'm only at the pinnacle of Tier 3 Dao fire. How could I cut it? Your intelligence, Sai. Tianyang stood 49 miles away, snickering as he spoke to Yi Qingyu. Yi Qingyu's face turned from despair to rage at those words. You tricked me. All's fair in war. You're the one who's retarded and you're blaming me? Tianyang snickered, not hiding the mockery on his face. The little demon king Yi Qingyu was being toyed around by him, toyed with in the palm of his hand. That feeling, there was only one word to describe it. Awesome. Damn it. I'll kill you. Yi Qingyu roared wildly. Tianyang smiled softly at those words, and stood still as he looked at the finish line that was only a mile away. At that moment, Yi Qingyu's attack was complete. Peerless Earth-tier martial technique, Sky Demon Fist. Yi Qingyu roared wildly, his black true yuan gathering rapidly to form a frightening fist that charged at Tianyang. Tianyang, on the other hand, smiled faintly, his true dragon body pushed to its limit. At that moment, the hellish lava reached him as well. Boom! The Sky Demon Fist landed heavily on Tianyang's back, sending him flying. At that moment, the hellish lava reached him, but the little demon king was stunned. Why didn't Tianyang block the attack? Impressive, impressive. My scalp is numb from this performance. Thank you so much. Tianyang laughed loudly. The strength of the true dragon body allowed him to be fearless of the Sky Demon Fist that spanned 49 miles. On the other hand, Tianyang used the impact of the punch to fly to the other side. Yi Qingyu's face darkened when he saw that. He took a few steps back and almost fell into the abyss. Then, he spat out a mouthful of blood. He had seen clearly that the hellish lava covered a large area, and Tianyang could only defend himself. However, because of his punch, Tianyang had no time to deal with the attack, and used his punch to fly to the other side. The sky demon fist that he had painstakingly condensed had become the driving force that sent Tianyang forward. He hated the fact that he had suppressed his golden thread year after year, and it had become someone else's wedding dress. The little demon king spat out blood. Everyone was shocked. Yi Qingyu's face darkened when he heard that. He took a few steps back and spat out another mouthful of blood. His aura dropped to its lowest point. Everyone was thoroughly shocked when they saw that. They looked at Tianyang, who had reached the second stage, in shock. His strategy and strength were truly worthy of being called a true prodigy. Even a disciple of a martial arts holy land would not be as good as him. He had toyed with the young master of the Sky Demon cult, and even used his attack to send him to the other side. The young master of the Sky Demon cult had been toyed with by Tianyang, a genius from a third-rate faction. For a moment, countless people were shaken. They looked at Tianyang and made a decision. They must not provoke Tianyang in the future. Otherwise, they would end up like the little demon king, spitting blood from anger. Chapter 5:15. The second stage. Tianyang quietly looked at the vast expanse of whiteness in front of him. His expression was very calm. Then, a voice slowly rang out. It was like a recording, without any emotion. Being able to reach the second stage shows that your reaction, calculation, movement, combat, and other comprehensive abilities have all met the requirements, or even exceeded them by quite a bit. However, this Jukei Shogun cave contains my inheritance. If your comprehensive ability is only strong, it is far from meeting my requirements, let alone competing for my master's inheritance. A middle-aged man's voice slowly rang out. Hearing this, Tianyang's expression changed slightly. This person was undoubtedly the Jukei Shogun. However, this inheritance? And competing for the master's inheritance? Tianyang was not surprised that the Jukei Shogun had left his inheritance in the cave. However, the master of the Jukei Shogun? There was no doubt that it was the Taishu Emperor. This performance in the Jukei Shogun cave was related to the inheritance of the Taishu Emperor. If this sentence were to be heard by others, it would definitely make them go crazy. It should be known that after 10,000 years of martial arts decline, the inheritance of a great emperor was something that even a Sea of Soul Realm expert would yearn for. However, Tianyang's expression only changed slightly. The second stage is a test of your control and adaptability to the flame. Next, I will use the vermilion bird's flames to burn the body of the Testi. Only after enduring for 16 hours in the vermilion bird's flames will one be able to enter the third stage. Jukei Shogun said. Hearing this, Tianyang nodded slightly. Then, the Jukei Shogun's voice abruptly stopped. In front of Tianyang, clusters of crimson flames suddenly ignited. This was the Jukei Shogun's vermilion bird fire. Legend has it that the divine beast vermilion bird is good at using flames. This Jukei Shogun has the name of the vermilion bird. It can't be a useless spearhead, right? I don't know if this vermilion bird fire is that strong. Tianyang smiled faintly, then sat down cross-legged, allowing the clusters of flames to burn his body. A burning pain appeared on Tianyang's body, but Tianyang only smiled faintly. He had experienced the pain of being burned by fire countless times. What could be more powerful than the myriad Tao divine fire? After being burned by the myriad divine fire so many times, Tianyang was naturally used to it. Of the vermilion bird fire, which was enough to make an ordinary half-step Sea of Soul Realm expert go crazy. However, although the vermilion bird's flames couldn't harm Tianyang's physical body, they could still make his true dragon body automatically circulate. Lines of true dragon patterns lit up, and the power of the true dragon flowed. Tianyang's true dragon body also improved rapidly under the burning of the vermilion bird fire. Traces of impurities turned into gas and were expelled. Tianyang's body also emitted a sparkling light, becoming stronger and stronger. This time, the Jukei Shogun seemed to have miscalculated. The vermilion bird fire, which shocked and terrified ordinary people on Tianyang, was not a test, but a great opportunity. Damned Tianyang! How dare you trick me? At this time, Yi Qingyu, who was at the entrance of the second stage, walked in with wounds all over his body. If I break through to the Sea of Soul Realm, I can kill you with a wave of my hand. Yi Qingyu roared. At this time, the Zhuge shogun's voice rang out again. However, it skipped the part about Emperor Taishu's inheritance. It seemed that it was a benefit for the first person to enter. The flames of the vermilion bird? Yi Qingyu's face paled slightly. He had heard of the Zhuge shogun's reputation. The Zhuge shogun's fire of the vermilion bird was the terrifying flame that the Zhuge shogun used to kill its enemies in ancient times. Even if it had been weakened with his strength, it would still be difficult for him to withstand it. However, we've already come this far. How can I back down? Wasn't it just the flames of the vermilion bird? Humph! How could I lose to that trash from a third-rate force in Tianyang? Yi Qingyu harumphed coldly and sat down with his legs crossed. Clusters of vermilion bird flames appeared on his body. Ah! Yi Qingyu's skin withered and cracked, and the true essence in his body nearly evaporated. His face twisted as he crazily roared. Meanwhile, Tianyang, who had been quietly cultivating in the distance, opened his eyes. He glanced at Yi Qingyu before looking away. The vermilion bird flame's effect of tempering one's body was extraordinary. If he didn't seize this opportunity, who knew how long it would be before he had another chance to break through his physical strength? Tianyang's goal was to break through to the peak of the true dragon body here. At this time, at the first stage, since the two prodigies, Tianyang and Yi Qingyu, had already left, the remaining people had a much easier time passing the stage. However, the best they could do was crawl a little more than 30 miles, which was a long way from Yi Qingyu and Tianyang. From time to time, someone would be swallowed by the hellish lava and fall into the endless abyss, turning into a pile of ashes. It was a shocking sight. This Azure Dragon Divine General's cave abode is indeed no ordinary cave abode. Zhu Naoyang's mouth twitched as he looked at the green, maze-like cave abode in front of him. If I had known, I would have gone straight to the Zhuge Shogun Cave. Western Region, White Tiger Divine General's cave abode. Damn it! There are actually quite a few people in the Western Region who can match me, Song Wei, and even surpass me. A black-robed man looked at the people who had passed the stage with an extremely ugly expression. He gritted his teeth and said, "Young master, I might not be able to complete your mission." Northern Region, Black Tortoise Divine General's cave abode. A white-robed woman wielding an ice-cold longsword could not help but mutter to herself as she destroyed the ice puppets in front of her with a strange expression on her face. Wasn't I supposed to go to the south? Why did I get teleported to the north, and even run into the Black Tortoise Divine General's cave abode? The girl could not help but go crazy. She was looking for her master. In the end, she and her master were separated by tens of thousands of miles. How was she supposed to find him? Behind the girl, countless people looked in horror at the girl who had entered and exited the first stage as if no one was there. Their hearts trembled. They had used all their strength to kill these ice puppets, but to no avail. They had barely managed to kill a few dozen of them. But in the end, they were as weak as paper in the hands of this girl? As expected of the prodigy who ranked fourth on the hunting list, Ling Yuhan. Zhuge Shogun Cave, second stage. 6 hours had passed. The vermilion bird flames burning all over Tianyang's body had also reached a peak state. In the next moment, Tianyang's eyes suddenly opened. Immediately, 108 true dragon tattoos appeared on his body, transforming into a true dragon that soared into the sky and roared. Roar. A single roar intimidated the heroes in all directions, causing countless geniuses to tremble. True Dragon Physique Peak. Chapter 5:16. Another 16 hours passed. The multicolored light on Tianyang's body slowly receded. His true dragon body, which seemed to have transformed into a flawless body, gradually returned to its original appearance. Although his true dragon body had reached its peak, it did not mean that his physical body had reached its limit. Therefore, after cultivating his true dragon body to its peak, Tianyang did not immediately enter the third stage. Instead, he cultivated for another 16 hours. At this time, the effect of the vermilion bird fire was almost negligible. Only then did he end his cultivation. Before my true dragon body reached great completion, I could easily kill an ordinary peak half-step C of Soul Realm. Now that I've reached the peak, my physical strength is comparable to a peak second-level C of Soul Realm. If I use a lot of techniques, I can even compete with a third-level C of Soul Realm. Although this Zhukei Shogun Cave is only a trial, there are also countless opportunities. Tianyang chuckled, then stood up. Looking at the people around him, his eyes suddenly focused. Only a few dozen people had passed the first stage. Now, these people, except for Yi Qingyu, were still cultivating. As for Yi Qingyu, Tianyang's eyes narrowed slightly. He did not think that Yi Qingyu could not pass the second stage. The only possibility was that he had given up on tempering his physical body and directly entered the third stage. If that's the case, then I can't fall too far behind. Tianyang chuckled, then his figure flashed and entered the spatial door to the third stage that he had prepared beforehand. Only when Tianyang's figure disappeared did some people wake up. They looked at Tianyang with lingering fear. The aura Tianyang displayed just now was just his physical strength, right? But why do I feel like I'm facing a second-level C of Soul Realm Senior? Could it be that Tianyang had another breakthrough just now? That person sucked in a breath of cold air and could not help but say. Hearing this, everyone secretly swallowed a mouthful of saliva. Tianyang was already so powerful that he was able to suppress the little demon king Yi Qingyu. Now that he had made a breakthrough, didn't that mean that he would be able to defeat everyone present? This terrifying speed, Tianyang, who didn't know what the outside world thought of him, had already reached the third stage. The third stage was the final stage. Tianyang didn't know what the third stage was about. By being able to reach the third stage, you have proven that your ability to adapt to flames is extremely powerful. Thus, you are qualified to inherit my Nirvana Divine Flame art. The Zhukei Shogun's voice was heard again, but this time, it wasn't the emotionless voice, but the real Zhukei Shogun. Tianyang's expression focused slightly when he heard this. Nirvana Divine Flame technique? If it was a cultivation technique, then it would be fun. He had already cultivated the Divine Desolate Sky Spirit art, so it was impossible for him to cultivate other cultivation technique. Didn't that mean that he had wasted his trip to the Zhukei Shogun Cave? It seemed that when the Zhukei Shogun was recording, he had considered the doubts of the person who came and spoke. This Nirvana Divine Flame art is also known as the Nirvana Secret Technique. It is not a cultivation technique, but I have fused some of my own insights into it and transformed it into a cultivation technique. What you really need to cultivate is this Nirvana Secret Technique. The Nirvana Secret Technique can absorb the vitality of heaven and earth as long as there is a trace of fire left, and reconstruct the body. If the Nirvana Secret Technique is cultivated to the large success stage, even if there is only a trace of the primordial spirit left, you can still be reborn from the ashes. The Zhukei Shogun said. Hearing this, Tianyang's eyes lit up. There was such a secret technique? Tianyang knew quite a few secret techniques, and the void-treading secret technique that he cultivated was one of them. Secret techniques had no ranks and were independent of cultivation techniques and martial technique. It was not an exaggeration to say that they were a type of divine ability. Listening to the Zhukei Shogun's words, the Nirvana Secret Technique was not much weaker than the void-treading secret technique. After all, as long as one was hanging on to one's last breath, they could be reborn. A secret technique that could restore vitality was extremely powerful. If the Almighties, who were already old but unwilling to die, heard that the Nirvana secret technique existed in the Great Void Mystery Land, they would do everything they could to obtain it. With the Nirvana secret technique, it was equivalent to having a second life. However, it is extremely difficult to cultivate the Nirvana secret technique. Back then, it took me a full 3 years to get a glimpse of it. But you only have 1 month's time left. If you can't make any progress in your cultivation in a month, then you can just go home, the Zhuge shogun said. Hearing this, Tianyang's heart skipped a beat. It had taken a powerful figure like the Zhuge shogun 3 years to cultivate it successfully. Now, there was only a month left for them. Didn't that mean that the successor had to be much more talented than the Vermilion Bird Divine General in order for it to be possible? Considering that the Great Void Secret Realm would only be open for 3 months, all of this became thought-provoking. Let's cut the crap and start the inheritance now, the Zhuge shogun snorted coldly. Then, a blazing flame appeared in front of Tianyang. The flame slowly expanded, and the record of the Nirvana secret technique appeared in it. Damn it! Why is the Nirvana secret technique so difficult? At that moment, Yi Qingyu, who had entered the 3rd stage a few hours before Tianyang, stared fixedly at the flame in front of him and roared. His martial talent had been praised since he was young, and even a high-level martial technique like the Sky Demon Fist did not require much time for him to cultivate. In the end, even after sitting there for several hours, he still could not see the slightest hint of the Nirvana secret technique. If it was still like this after a month, then he would have no chance at the Vermilion Bird Divine General's cave. Even I, the young master of the Sky Demon cult, can't comprehend it, let alone Tianyang, who hails from a third-rate faction. When the time comes, both of us will die together, Yi Qingyu said coldly. Meanwhile, on the other side, Tianyang's expression did not change as he quietly stared at the flame in front of him. The Nirvana power that had been hidden in the true dragon core within his body for a long time suddenly began to tremble. Tianyang's expression changed slightly as he looked inside himself. He saw that within the true dragon's elixir, the Nirvana power that came from the Nirvana spiritual pool at the Northern Wilderness Mystic Realm's 9 steps to heaven was expanding rapidly. It vaguely formed a connection with the Nirvana secret technique before him. In the next instant, Tianyang felt that the obscure Nirvana secret technique in front of him suddenly became clear. Countless incomprehensible ancient characters, operating methods, and activating veins were all displayed before Tianyang's eyes. This Nirvana power can actually help me comprehend the Nirvana secret technique. Tianyang's lips curled slightly as he laughed softly. Chapter 5:17. 1 month later. Tianyang slowly opened his eyes, and the surface of his body burned with raging flames. Subsequently, Tianyang abruptly opened his eyes. Bang! Tianyang's body of flesh and blood instantly exploded, and turned into a rain of blood that filled the sky. In the next moment, flames rose up, and the heaven and earth spirit chi madly converged, once again forming a body of flesh and blood. Nirvana Secret Art, 1st Volume, Rebirth of Flesh and Blood, successfully cultivated. Tianyang's expression was excited as he looked at his palm. There wasn't any difference from before, and it was even stronger. Previously, Tianyang's body had many impurities in it, and after being expelled by the Vermilion Bird's flames, there were still many stubborn impurities. However, after he cultivated the Nirvana Secret Art, he directly reconstructed his body, and the countless impurities were directly evaporated. The current Tianyang's body couldn't be said to be flawless, but it was almost there. The strength of his body was comparable to the 3rd level of the Sea of Soul realm. Just by relying on the strength of his body, Tianyang could blast a 1st-level Sea of Soul realm expert into dregs, even if the opponent used a true origin spirit artifact and other treasures. Now, a month has almost passed. The remaining 2 volumes will probably take a long time to cultivate, Tianyang said to himself. He had a feeling that this nirvana secret art was only a part of an extremely powerful divine art. If he cultivated that powerful divine art successfully, perhaps he could shatter a world with a single punch. Of course, this was only a thought. The current Tianyang hadn't even cultivated the first volume of the Nirvana secret art to large success. The first volume, Rebirth of Flesh and Blood, the second volume, Indestructible Primordial Spirit, and the third volume, Undying Body. The Nirvana secret art was composed of these 3 volumes, and Tianyang had only reached the first volume. Dong, dong, dong. At this moment, a sound that was like a great bell appeared between heaven and earth, and Yi Qingyu, who was cultivating, abruptly woke up as well. At this moment, Yi Qingyu's eyes were bloodshot, his fingernails pierced deeply into his flesh, and his hair was disheveled like a devil. Damn it! This Nirvana secret art was also too difficult to cultivate. I, the great Yi Qingyu, have actually studied it for an entire month without making any progress. However, I've also gained some insights from the Nirvana secret technique. If I go out, I'll definitely be able to kill Tianyang. Yi Qingyu grinned. Then, with a flash of silver light, he and the countless people in the Zhukei Shogun Cave were teleported out of the Zhukei Shogun Cave. In the third stage, Tianyang was still standing in the same place. To be able to achieve flesh rebirth in just a month, I'm afraid that even if my master was alive, he would not be able to achieve such a feat. At this time, the flames in front of Tianyang suddenly turned into an illusory figure. It looked at Tianyang and chuckled. Hearing this, Tianyang raised his eyebrows. Zhukei Shogun? That's right. Zhukei Shogun smiled. The Nirvana secret art is a secret art that even my master and I have not been able to cultivate successfully. However, in just a month, you've reached the level that my master reached in 3 years. With such talent, there's definitely hope for you to successfully cultivate to the second and third stage. Hearing this, Tianyang's expression changed slightly. Zhukei Shogun had reached the threshold in 3 years, and the Taishu Emperor had reached the first stage in 3 years? If he had cultivated alone, it would have taken him at least half a year to reach the first stage. The reason why he was so strong this time was probably because of the Nirvana secret art. This time, it's much better than the last time. The inheritors of the 4 divine generals' cave abodes have all appeared, and my master's inheritance is finally about to appear. You have my master's keepsake, so you're the most likely person to receive my master's inheritance. I have faith in you. Zhukei Shogun smiled. At this time, the flame gradually disappeared and was extinguished. Hearing this, Tianyang's expression changed slightly. Keepsake? Could it be that the mini-sword that came from the Taishu Holy Stone? However, he didn't see anything special about the mini-sword. Forget it, I'll take one step at a time. Let's get out of this Zhukei Shogun Cave first. Tianyang shook his head. Then, he activated the void-stepping secret art and flew out. Now that he had successfully cultivated the Nirvana secret art, he was equivalent to half the master of Zhukei Shogun Cave. Naturally, the restrictive spells here would not affect him. In a flash, Tianyang arrived outside the cave abode. Looking at the crowd on the mountain peak, his expression changed slightly. Based on the number of people in the Vermilion Bird Mountains a month ago, at least a few thousand people had entered Zhukei Shogun Cave. But now, there were at most 100 or 200 people left here. In other words, most of them had died in Zhukei Shogun Cave. This Zhukei Shogun Cave is really cruel. Other than the third trial, almost every trial has the risk of death. Even if it's the third one, there's still the possibility of him going berserk. However, only a cruel test can select a true genius. Tianyang muttered to himself. Just as he was about to land, a loud shout was heard. Tianyang! You're finally out! At this time, Yi Qingyu looked at Tianyang, who had flown out of Zhukei Shogun Cave, and laughed sinisterly. Then die. Ultimate Earth-class martial technique, Demon Fire Heavenly Flaming Fist. Yi Qingyu roared crazily. Seeing this, the surrounding people retreated in shock. They did not expect Yi Qingyu to attack Tianyang as soon as he came out. Seeing this, Tianyang snorted coldly. He was not surprised at all, and the true yuan in his body surged. Yi Qingyu had been unhappy with him for a long time. Even if he came out now, it was not surprising at all. True essence condensed and the power of the true dragon gathered. Without any fancy moves, he punched out. Boom! The mountain peak collapsed and the ground cracked. Even Zhukei Shogun Cave, which was about to disappear, was affected. However, this was not what shocked the crowd the most. Instead, it was the heavenly sun that had destroyed the fiery fist. Bang! The black demon fire scattered and fell to the ground, almost burning through the entire mountain peak. Seeing this, Yi Qingyu's expression changed slightly. Tianyang definitely did not use any martial technique in the punch just now. But he broke his demon fire heavenly flaming fist? This is definitely a coincidence. Yi Qingyu shook his head and roared. Then, he looked coldly at Tianyang. Don't think that you can be so arrogant just because you broke my move. Previously, I did not make a move because of Zhukei Shogun Cave. Now I'll show you the true strength of my heavenly demon cult. Yi Qingyu roared. The next moment, his figure disappeared abruptly. Then, black shadows appeared in midair and surrounded Tianyang. Superior Earth-class martial soul, 1,000 demon shadows. Yi Qingyu laughed loudly. In the next moment, his true yuan condensed and endless black light shone. Chapter 518. Earth-class peerless martial skill, 1,000 demon palm. Yi Qingyu roared. In the next moment, countless phantoms condensed into a monstrous demonic light and charged toward Tianyang. Humph, you're trying to paint a tiger but end up looking like a dog. I wonder how much more powerful the 1,000 demon palm of the real demon clan is compared to your 1,000 demon palm. Tianyang snorted coldly. The true yuan in his body surged and the heavenly annihilation fire burst out instantly. Heavenly annihilation fire, 1,000 flames incinerate the heavens. The inheritance of the Zhukei Shogun was naturally not as simple as the Nirvana secret technique. Within the Nirvana secret technique, the Zhukei Shogun also hid a few of his original fire technique. One of them was an area attack that maximized the power of the spiritual fire. 1,000 flames incinerate the heavens. 1,000 flames incinerate the heavens, as the name suggested, endless flames could burn the sky. The heavenly annihilation fire was just like that. The flames that contained the power of annihilation and the power of the sun swept away all the phantoms, leaving only 3 clones with basic combat power. 3 clones and 1 main body left? Seeing this, Tianyang's expression changed slightly. Looking at the 4 unaffected bodies, he said, "No wonder it was so easy to clean up before. It turns out that the 3 clones were taking the brunt of the disaster." Tianyang laughed. Hearing this, Yi Qingyu's expression darkened slightly. "I didn't expect you to see through it so easily. That's right. This is the ability of my martial soul. Summon countless 1,000 phantoms, and then let some of them share the damage. The remaining 3 that I can control will be used to attack. Killing you is as easy as pie." Yi Qingyu laughed sinisterly. In the next moment, he kicked his legs in the air and charged toward Su Kei. "Die! 1,000 demon palm!" Yi Qingyu roared angrily. Hearing this, Tianyang shook his head. "I've said it before, you're trying to paint a tiger but end up looking like a dog. This 1,000 demon palm is really rubbish." In the next moment, Tianyang struck out with his palm. His peak true dragon body instantly erupted and dispersed the energy on the palm. "What?" Seeing this, Yi Qingyu's expression changed drastically. He then sneered, "You can break 1 palm, but do you think you can break 4? Every clone I left behind has the same strength as me. No matter what, you must die." Yi Qingyu laughed heartily as he greedily scanned Tianyang from head to toe. He cultivated a demonic martial skill and used it to devour the flesh and blood of others to strengthen himself. The more talented a person was, the more powerful their flesh and blood would be, and the more beneficial it would be to him. Yi Qingyu could even imagine himself swallowing Tianyang's flesh and blood, sweeping through the great void's secret realm, and becoming invincible. 3. 4. Is there a difference? Tianyang shook his head and sighed softly as he looked at the 3 clones that had sealed off all his escape routes and were using the 10,000 demon palm to attack him. Without strength, it's all just an illusion. In the next moment, the half-spiritual sea realm's vital essence instantly erupted. The majestic vital essence directly suppressed the 3 clones. In the next moment, Tianyang used the dragon roaming 9 heavens steps and disappeared on the spot. Styx sword technique, first form, road to the underworld. Tianyang sneered. The Styx sword in his hand flashed with an extremely sharp light of death and directly destroyed one of the clones. Then, Tianyang's figure flashed again. The road to the underworld's momentum did not decrease and destroyed another clone. Damn it! Half-heaven rank martial skill, heaven rank demonic seal. Seeing that his 1,000 demon palm was useless in front of Tianyang and was as weak as a piece of paper, Yi Qingyu's face turned completely gloomy. How could a piece of trash from a third-rate force possess such strength? Powerful and mysterious seals condensed between his hands. In the next moment, a pitch-black seal with a monstrous demonic aura appeared between heaven and earth. The seal was huge, with a diameter of 50 feet. On it were mysterious demonic runes that were enough to make people lose their minds. It spanned between heaven and earth, emitting endless pressure and power that could suppress mountains and seas. Seeing this scene, everyone couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. It's actually the heaven-rank demonic seal. This is the sect-guarding treasure of the heavenly demon cult. I didn't expect Yi Qingyu to actually succeed in cultivating it. Half-heaven-rank martial skill, that's a legendary existence. It's enough to fight against enemies of a higher rank. Tianyang is in trouble this time. I originally thought that Tianyang had stepped into the half-spiritual sea realm and could easily crush Yi Qingyu. I didn't expect Yi Qingyu to actually know the heaven-rank demonic seal. Everyone exclaimed. Hearing this, Yi Qingyu immediately laughed wantonly. Ha 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 ha. Tianyang, do you know fear now? The power of a half-heaven-rank martial skill is not something that a trash from a third-rate force like you can understand. Now die for me! Yi Qingyu roared. The condensed heaven-rank demonic seal immediately erupted with a brilliant light and attacked Tianyang. Half-heaven-rank martial skill? This should be your heavenly demon cult's highest martial skill, right? Unfortunately, the martial skill is okay, but the strength of the person using it is not enough. Tianyang's eyes narrowed slightly and he chuckled. The Styx sword in his hand released a wild killing intent. Half-heaven rank martial skill? I'll break it now. Tianyang laughed loudly. Stepping on the void, he held the Styx sword in his hand and released a monstrous killing intent. The surging killing intent condensed and turned into the slaughter domain under Tianyang's feet. In the next moment, Tianyang stared at the heaven-rank demonic seal without blinking and snorted coldly. Styx sword technique, 4th style, Azura path. Boom. The wild killing intent covered the entire Vermilion Bird mountain range. Everyone in the mountain range seemed to be affected by the killing intent, as if they had fallen into a death zone. Yi Qingyu, in particular, was affected the most. Everything around him seemed to have turned from green mountains and clear waters into a sea of corpses and blood. His arrogant face was instantly filled with fear. In the next moment, the Azura Path sword had already reached him. No! Yi Qingyu roared crazily and instantly came to his senses. The inner yuan in his body circulated rapidly, and he was about to mobilize the power of the heaven-rank demonic seal to block the sword. Unfortunately, even the heaven-rank demonic seal was as weak as paper in front of this sword. Bang! The Azura path soared and the heaven-rank demonic seal collided. In the next moment, the entire heaven-rank demonic seal began to tremble. Cracks appeared on the heaven-rank demonic seal, and in an instant, the cracks covered the entire seal. Boom! The heaven-rank demonic seal exploded like a crystal, turning into energy fragments that filled the sky. Seeing this, Yi Qingyu's face turned completely pale. Even his half-heaven-rank martial skill, the heaven-rank demonic seal, was not Tianyang's opponent? How powerful was Tianyang, who had stepped into the half-step sea of Soul Realm? Run! There was only one word in Yi Qingyu's heart at this moment. In the next moment, Yi Qingyu burned his inner yuan, turned into a stream of light, and rushed out.